just before us in a few minutes, and you should be happy, and just give yourself a hand for being in Muhammad's mosque today. All praises are due to Allah, because everybody wants to know what the Nation of Islam is all about. Everybody wants to know what we believe and what we teach. There's so much controversy about whether or not we believe in Jesus and whether or not we trust him and whether or not we know him. So many want to know, do we believe in Jesus? That's a good question, and we got the answers for you today. We didn't invite you here to waste your time, because we know that your time is very valuable, and ours is too. But all of these questions are going to be answered. Don't you want to know what we believe? Don't you want to know whether or not we believe in the man Jesus of the Scripture? And whether or not we teaching blasphemy? Don't you want to know these things? Since that's a big discussion, and everybody's clamoring about this, and everybody wants to know just what do these people teach, and are they really a divine people? Is the Nation of Islam really a divine place to be? Is it a really holy place to be? Everybody wants to know that. Well, you come to the right place today. We got a brother that's going to crack some atoms here today and going to crack our brain. We invited you here to stretch your brain today. The black man and woman's brain need to be stretched today. And with all the teaching and the preaching of Jesus that's going on every day, don't you know we should be better as a people? Shouldn't we? We should be better. As much Jesus as we have and as much church as we have, we should be a better people. Don't you think so? Yes, after 440 years of hell, and the very ones that teaching us about Jesus were hanging our mothers and fathers from trees. Ain't that something? So we need to know, we need to have a thorough knowledge of ourselves, and we are thankful to Allah that this day, you won't leave today the same way. You won't leave today the same way that you came. You are going to be blessed to have for the first time the real explanation of what we believe as far as Jesus is concerned. And don't you believe what no one else tells you about the Nation of Islam and what we teach and what we believe. You come here for yourself, and then you judge for yourself whether or not this would be the place for you. That's an intelligent thing to do, isn't it? Yes, to hear for yourself. There are a lot of he say and she say, but you want to hear it firsthand for yourself. So you are here to hear this truth. And if you think about it, with a church on every corner, and as much hell as we are raising in our own community, and we represent that one that we say in the Scripture, that one called Christ, that we say we represent, shouldn't we be as he was, as black people? Come on now. Shouldn't we be acting like him? Shouldn't we be nicer to one another as black people? But we're worse. We're not better as a people. We are worse as a people. We got church. Memphis got more churches than any other city in the country. In the Guinness Book of World Records for the most churches. Ain't that something? But yet, the madness that has been pervading and has been going on in our community, no one has been able to solve this problem. A problem has been created that no scholar or scientist has been able to deal with. And that's the problem of 30 to 40 million black people in America who are unwanted, who have been declared by this country as a permanent underclass. Do you know that? A permanent underclass. And they say that, now if the prophets saw this, did they see 30 to 40 million black people here in America? Did the prophets see black people in America? That's a good question. We're going to answer that question today. Our brother will be out here in just a few minutes to answer that question. And did the prophets see America? If they didn't, we can't call them prophets, can we? So, we have had, for the 440 years that we've been in this country, all the preaching and all the teaching of Jesus. But that has not made us better. So we have to ask the question, who is Jesus? And do we know him? These are good questions. And we're going to answer them today. Huh? You came to the right place. Who is Jesus? Since everybody's talking about him, it seems like all these people that are talking about him, they should be able to give us some solutions to the problem of black folk. Shouldn't it? They should be able to give us some solutions to solve our black male-female relationships. If we have that true message of Christ, we should be better as a people. We believe that we have been mistaught, misguided, miseducated, and just plain, as they say, hoodwinked, or bamboozled, or lied to about Jesus. And they say that the first slave ships, they were brought over, the first one was called Jesus, a ship named Jesus. Ain't that something? A ship named Jesus. It said Jesus is coming. I wonder, which one are we talking about? Are we talking about that ship or that one? Huh? These things, we must know these things. And it was that name that the slave masters used to enslave us. That's really something, isn't it? So we believe that we as a people, in order for us to even sit down and talk to one another, we have to have a thorough knowledge of ourselves and our kind. And we invite you here for you to accept your own and your own kind. Not just your own kind as a people, but your own kind as far as your own God, your own religion, your own name, your own culture, your own folk ways and mores. We're the only people who don't want to have nothing to do with our culture and our heritage. That's a shame, ain't it? With all the, you see, people want us to accept religion, but they want us to be like them. You can accept religion, but you gotta be like white folks. You mean you gotta change the way you talk and twist those big black African lips to the side and try to talk, like them. Right? They want us to be Muslims. They say we don't have the true Islam. They want us to be Muslims, but they want us to be Arabs. See? They want you to deny your own heritage and culture for them. See? They don't mind making you Christians, but they want to make you like themselves. They don't want to crystallize you into oneness with the one true God, but they want to crystallize you into oneness with them, meaning the oppressor. I'm telling you right. And anytime you want to get up in this world, you have to make yourself appealing to who? The oppressor. Huh? You want a better paying job, you have to appeal to them. If you want to get over, you have to appeal to them. So this world and this world scholarship has not been able to deal with the problem of black people in America. So we say that we have not had or known the truth. But you are blessed today. We have a brother that's going to stretch you beyond the thinking of the scholarship of this world today. We have a brother who is going to stretch you beyond the thinking of the diameter of the thinking of the oppressor today. He's going to stretch you with the help of Allah beyond the thinking of the slavery teaching that we've been taught. He's going to stretch us beyond that today. See? The biggest way to enslave someone, you use God's name to do it. That's the biggest way to get a slave. Why? Because if I can deceive you in the name of God, I got a permanent slave. I got a forever slave if I can deceive you in the name of God, making you think one thing about God and Christ, and then the whole time lying about it at the same time. That's the best way to deceive a slave. And the slaves were deceived because in order to trick the slave master had to come in the name of somebody that the slave would respect. See? If I come in the name of somebody that you respect, then you're prone to listen to me. See? If I come and telling you that I'm Satan, you're not going to listen to me. You already know the program. You already know what's going on. But if I want to trick you, if I really want to trick you, the best way to trick you is in the name of God. Or in the name of one of his prophets. Right or wrong? And that's what's been done. And until the Elijah Muhammad began speaking to us, no one was concerned. No one was concerned with black folk until Minister Farrakhan stood back up in 1977 to rebuild the work of Elijah Muhammad. No one was concerned. Now all of a sudden everybody's so concerned about black folk. They weren't concerned at first. Not before Minister Farrakhan started back speaking to us. Right or wrong? They were not concerned. But they were, now all of a sudden they're interested he ain't teaching the right Islam. What is the right Islam? Since they say that they have it. They've had the Quran. They didn't bother to share the Holy Quran with black people. They set up shop in our community, don't they? They don't care nothing about sharing no Quran with us or nothing else. They call us a bunch of savages and take our money. You know what they do, don't they? No one, now all of a sudden everybody's concerned. He's taking us to hell. He's not teaching the true gospel. Y'all need this. Y'all don't need to be with that Islam. Y'all need to let that stuff go. In 1977, no one was concerned until Minister Farrakhan started speaking to us. Now, since the rise and spread of Islam, now everybody wants to be on their post now. Everybody wants to be a devout Christian now. They wasn't practicing no devout Christianity at first. Not since the truth has exposed in them. See, whenever you know the truth and the person in the room been telling lies all the time, when you see the person that knows the secret, he get a little shaky because the one that's coming to expose him has just walked in the room, because you know that your lie about to be exposed. And that's true. They know that their stuff is about to be exposed. So they have to keep lying to you. See? The preacher on the plantation was the biggest tool of the slave master. He had to keep the preacher in order to keep the slaves from rising up and getting too angry, because they wanted to kill their oppressor. So in order to keep the slave passive, you have to pacify them, give them something to make them, less violent. See? So he say, turn the other cheek, and you shouldn't fight, or you shouldn't hate. Huh? That's the way you make people passive. So they pacify us and get us all caught up in emotionalism. Huh? But nothing to change the condition of the people. Nothing that speaks to black men and black women. Huh? When no scholar or scientist on earth has been able to dispute and disprove the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. You just can't do that. No scholar or scientist yet has been able to disprove that. So that is to be questioned. You can always question truth and question God. And if we say that we have been given the truth, then we should not fear anyone else's truth, right? If you're comfortable in that which you say that you believe, then when someone else gives you an expose or presentation of what they believe, that should not bother you or shake you from what you believe, right? You should be firm. You should be studied. You should be assured. I believe this. And you should not be ashamed to say what you personally believe without a fear or threat that somebody's going to take something from you if you rooted in that which you believe. Right or wrong? If we represent Christ, we should be firm in our belief and say, yeah, I believe in this. And I'm willing to stand and argue and discuss my belief. See? That's how you know if you secure in that. If you really believe that, then he said what? Let your light shine. Let your works testify. Don't tell me what you know. Tell me what you're doing to change the masses and the minds of the people. Black folk, there's 30 to 40 million black people in America. Nobody seems to know what to do with us. What's wrong? Elijah Muhammad knew what to do with us. He gave the only solution to the problem of black people in America. He did what the social workers couldn't do, what the churches couldn't do, what the schools couldn't do, what the home couldn't do. And when Minister Farrakhan stood back up, he challenged the scholarship of this world to say that they have taught us. They say that they have taught us. They say that they have educated us. What's wrong with us? We have been misguided and misrepresented in this world. And the scholarship of this world has not given an effective solution to the problem of black people. That's why they say the best way to deal with us is to get rid of us, because they say that there is no solution for us. See? But there is one who has been a voice crying in the wilderness since 1977, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. And he has offered and rebuilt the work of Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam, and has been that key to the whole problem. You see? See, the problem is you, black man and woman. The solution is you. See? And you the biggest discussion inside of the theology of this world. The whole discussion about Jesus has everything to do with you and I. See? God's chosen people, that's a big secret in Christendom and in the theology of this world, because they know who God's chosen people is. And the biggest secret is to keep that from the masses of black folk. See? Because why? That's how they keep the permanent slaves. And keep you and I as a permanent underclass by not showing us our true divinity and who we really are. If we knew who we really are, we would be a better people today. But someone is trying to make sure that you don't ever know the truth. To keep you from this truth and to keep you from Minister Farrakhan, that's big money. To keep you from the light and knowledge of yourself is big money in this world. And that's money in their pockets to keep you from knowing who you are. They don't want you to know, so they'll do anything to keep you from us. Don't fool around with those Muslims. They're haters. They're liars. Huh? No, they can't say we're lying. They have to say we're haters. They have to say we're anti-Semites. We don't believe in Jesus. You in for a treat today. Who is Jesus? Since everybody talking about it, especially on Sunday morning. That's the best, the number one hour, the Jesus hour. Every Sunday. Everybody got something to say about that man. See? How he said that they draw nigh to me with their lips, but their hearts are far removed from me. Meaning this heart here, the core of your thinking, meaning the knowledge of Jesus, we don't know. We are as far from him as the sun is from the earth. Far from him, because they have not taught us. How can they know except they have a teacher or a preacher? And how can they have him except he be sent? We believe that God raised up the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and sent him into the world. We believe that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad raised up and put his mind and his will and his spirit in Minister Farrakhan and sent him into the world. And now he's sending us to teach the world, to go into the highways and the byways, to take this message to the ends of the earth. Why? Because Christianity has had the sway over the masses of the people for 400 years. And if we had that, and that has not helped us, then we have to ask ourselves the question, do we really know that the true gospel? Do we really have the true message of Christ? Since this is what's been fed to us for 400 years, do we really have the true message of Christ? You see? These are questions that we have to answer within ourselves. You know best how to answer for yourself. And you can't answer for no one but yourself today. But be encouraged, black men and women. You should rejoice. See? We do believe in Jesus. And we have a very intimate knowledge of him that we invited you here to share that knowledge with you. Because we believe that the whole world is waiting on us. See? He said, I'll take the foolish things of the world and I will confound the wise. And these black folk in America have been foolish, but here today, never again. And he will take us and he will confound the scholars of this world, because all the scholarship we gave to them, right or wrong, we taught them their theology, we taught them mathematics, we taught them science, and we're going to teach them religion. And the true expression of religion, because we are all righteous. We're taught that every black man and woman is a righteous Muslim by nature. And a Muslim is only one who submits his will or her will to do God's will. That's your nature. Islam is your nature. And Islam is a beautiful thing. And that's you. And that's us. That's our nature. Your nature is Muslim. To submit, to do God's will. So at this time, I thank you for your time and your attention as I yield to the rostrum the local representative, Minister Anthony Muhammad. Let us receive him.
Alaikum. Brothers, receive it. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is but one God and that Muhammad is his messenger. Let me greet everyone. Asalaam alaikum. Brothers and sisters, if you are not familiar with those are words that simply mean peace be unto you. It means that we as Muslims are your brothers and sisters, and we wish you well. We mean you nothing but peace. We thank you for coming to be with us today. And we're not going to waste your time. We pray to Almighty God that something will be said that will benefit all of us in our growth and our development. We're happy to say to you today that we have a special guest with us who will be before you shortly. That special guest is Brother Minister Jabril Muhammad. I can better familiarize you with Brother Jabril if you would read the final call. There's an article that's in every paper called Farrakhan the Traveler. As a matter of fact, brother, why don't you bring me one of those books, Farrakhan the Traveler, and the other book. He writes an article in the final call almost every edition called Farrakhan the Traveler, and has been doing so for since the final call has been out. He's a man that I'm sure you would enjoy hearing from, and he shall be with us shortly. But I just wanted to come and welcome you and thank you for coming out, hoping that you were treated very warmly and respectfully when you came in. I also want to say to you, we were with Minister Farrakhan just recently, Monday, in Chicago, where he came back in the country and gave a speech or a lecture around the World Friendship Tour that he took just a few days ago. You know the tour where they called him anti-American. He was consorting with terrorists. You know that tour. You remember that tour where everyone is saying that Minister Farrakhan he blew it. He had a chance to be the best leader or the boldest or the strongest leader that we had, and he blew it by going on a World Friendship Tour. And we got to just grow up, and let's face some realities. We live in a world where people lie every day. You can buy newspapers full of lies. Inquiring minds want to know who can lie the best. I've seen them. You've seen them. If you've ever been in a grocery store, you see them every day right at the checkout stand. Matter of fact, you read some of them while you're waiting in line. Am I right? They show you pictures of women with babies that are 40 pounds. Don't they? Show you a picture of the baby, just lie and lie and lie some more. If you are a celebrity, then you become accustomed to lies. Well, Mr. Farrakhan answered the critics and did his own report, which is what we should hear anyway, on his World Friendship Tour. And if you want to know, you need to get the latest final call to hear his words on the World Friendship Tour. He also addressed, to some extent, I should add, they say on the 700 Club he said he's Jesus. Farrakhan called himself Jesus. And you don't have to be a brain surgeon to know Farrakhan was calling himself Jesus. Well, we're going to answer that one today, but don't leave here without Minister Farrakhan's words on the World Friendship Tour and his response to the 700 Club. You do yourself a disservice if you don't hear for yourself what he said. And then go and tell them, deal with this. I guarantee you it's a knockout punch. But we have our brother here, Brother Jabril, and he's going to deal with some of this 700 Club. I don't want to use the word madness, but I just use the words outright lies. Where they're trying to say that we are cult religion. But you know what that means? at the root of it, it means that all of you in this room, you just dumb. You too dumb to hear truth. You don't know truth when you hear it. You following a cult leader. You come to hear from a cult leader. That's exactly what they're saying when they say these things. So we have to respond to that. Also, we're going to deal with some issues that have come up in this city, where we have many clergy who are writing pamphlets on us. I went to his church and I found that there were more pamphlets in his church on us than there were on Jesus. He spent more time writing about what we are or not and what we are than writing on what he's doing with Jesus. I found that to be very strange. But many times, brothers and sisters, people want to put others down to make themselves look good. But we are happy today that it's showdown time. See, we are those who say, you cast first, and then we cast. And when we cast, then our rod is going to swallow up your rod, because we have the truth with us. And we are not ashamed of what we say. We just try to be careful as we can to say what we say. Because sometimes truth hurts. And people run from truth because it steps on your toes. It shows you and me where we are ignorant and where we are faulty. But since they want to come on out with some truth about Jesus, let's deal with it and find out whether the Jesus they got is Jesus or not. Let's deal with it. Let's put it on the table. So now, from my understanding, is there is a conference is coming up now. A conference on, guess who? Jesus. A Jesus conference. Will the real Jesus please stand up? Let's get it on. See, it's time out now for emotion and hype and hooping and all of that. Let's get down to the facts. Let's get down to the real deal, or what we call the nitty gritty. See, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says to us, and Honorable Louis Farrakhan teaches us, that if our people knew the truth concerning Jesus, our people will awaken overnight. If black people in America knew the truth about Jesus, we would arise, we would awaken overnight. That's what we are taught. We didn't say Muhammad. We said Jesus. So if we can go in that Bible and find that Jesus, not the made up Jesus, because you know they got a made up person, one that's ready, camera ready. They got a camera ready Jesus. Nothing like the Jesus of your scripture. So we're going to deal with that. And now, brother Jabril, I'm telling you, he can handle it. You picked the right day to come to Muhammad's mosque. You picked the right time to come to Muhammad's mosque. But I hope that you would just be patient with us. And as Jesus said, let us just reason together. We have to admit, and I don't want to go any further than this, we have to admit that we don't know all truth. Come on. We have to admit something's wrong in America. You have to admit racism still exists in the church. Huh? People are against us in the name of God. We are discriminated against today, right now, in the name of God. People are burning black churches. And I'm sure they're burning these black churches probably in the name of Jesus. Huh? They're reading the same Bible you read, but they got a whole different interpretation from what you coming up with. You don't find in America everybody loving everybody. If they loving everybody but you. And we loving everybody but ourselves. Let's be honest. And what's wrong and what's missing in America is truth. And the one thing that can't be conjured up, or the thing that they will not allow, is honest dialogue. They won't allow, let's sit down and talk it out. Let the chips fall where they may. There's always some cover up, some game, some scam, some scheme, some con. Always yellow journalism, where they want to put on what they want to put on, but they won't allow anyone to come on and counteract what they put on. They got what you call in America the big lie theory, where they lie over and over and over again. Then they take the lie and put it in the history book, and then the lie becomes the truth. Perfect example. Columbus discovered America. That's a lie. How many think it's the truth? Oh, you mean everybody in this room, you know that's a lie? Yet it's still being taught every day in the history class. They tell it over and over and over. Pretty soon it becomes the truth. We know, based on history, Columbus was lost. He thought he was in India, but he was here, but he thought he was in India, so he named the people Indians. That's a fact of history. He didn't know where he was. How are you going to discover something and there are thousands into the millions of people already there? You mean they didn't know where they were either? I heard Sinbad say, that's why somebody said, I discovered your stereo in your car. I heard Sinbad say that. I thought that made sense. How are you going to discover my stereo? I discovered your stereo because it was turned off. You discovered my stereo. So we live in a world that feeds the people daily lies. We live in a world that never wants any true leader among our people to be accepted among our people. That's right. Only after they're dead and gone. Yes, sir. And I'm willing to bet you, most of the leaders that we have on our wall, on our t-shirt, are dead. You got them all across here, dead, gone. Because dead do not move the living. Jesus said, let the dead bury the dead. He said his God was not the God of the dead. Did he say that? He said, my God is the God of the living. Did he say it? I didn't say it. Jesus said that. But they feed us our leaders or give us our leaders back dead. And then from that, it's all right for us to look up to them. Then they give us permits to have holidays and celebrations for our dead leaders. It's okay now. Dr. King was killed. Now it's okay to have a Dr. King holiday after we kill him. Now you all can do that. You can have a Malcolm X day. You want a Marcus Garvey day? That's fine. We'll give you a permit. We will permit you to observe Marcus Garvey today. And we will actually read some of his words on TV during a commercial today. I have a dream. It's really ridiculous how they treat our leaders. So here we are in 1996, and the same game, same thing, coming down the pipe. You got a black man in America, not bought, not sold, not owned by the enemy. He's in America. A strong black man. He's not weak, not turning the other cheek, not hooping and hollering. And they want to get rid of that man. Let me stop right here because I see my brother is coming on, and I ask you to receive him with a warm round of applause. Yes, sir. Brother Jabril Muhammad, brother, please be seated. Give him a round of applause, Minister Jabril Muhammad. I got the books I didn't get a chance to get to him.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. In the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is indeed his servant. My dear brothers and sisters, I apologize for being a little late, but there was something very serious that we had to do. In the interest of trying to move as quickly as we can, because I don't want any of you, I know you have things you have to do, some of you, appointments or whatever. I hope that you don't leave before we finish the few points we want to get over. Anytime any brother or sister mounts this speaker stand at these locations, I don't care how humble they may be, Muhammad's mosque, as we call them, we are engaging in just about the most critical thing or activity black men and women can be involved in. Now, before I get to precisely what I mean by that, I wish to say this. You know, it's very easy to misrepresent anyone or represent anyone. I don't care how truthful and how accurate they are. their words or their position or whatever can be represented in a way that makes them look like a fool. You can take God's word, something that God himself has said, something that everybody of common sense would agree that God either did say or would say. And you can represent it in such a way so that you can make God, to the foolish, look foolish. I got the opportunity 2 nights ago to look at a 2-hour abbreviated, it was edited, version of what a brother, a pastor, a Christian pastor in Detroit, Michigan, hosted a program where he had a sister and a brother helping him to go through a program in which they misrepresented both the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. And my purpose is not to react to everything that they said. It would have to be, the only way I would participate in a meeting like that is if everyone who came knew that's what we were going to deal with. And the purpose would be then to lay out all of the facts. As you all are intelligent enough to recognize the fact that it takes less time to state a position, whatever it may be, than it does to back up that position. Would you agree with that? Now, I didn't get a chance to watch the 5-hour, the full-length program. You know what I'm talking about, the 700 Club, in which Minister Farrakhan clips, bits and pieces of what he said was represented, and in such a way as to give the reader or the listener the idea that Minister Farrakhan is projecting himself as the Jesus Christ of the Bible. Now, I'm going to make this very clear in case you are from any church, and you probably are, all of us just about, probably at one time or another came from a church. My point now is this. If you have the truth, you have what you are convinced is the truth. If you find it necessary to misrepresent someone else's position, to establish or reestablish your own, then to any intelligent person looking at you, to one degree or another, you have stated you're not so sure of what you have. You're not so sure of the accuracy of what you have. Now, listen to me very carefully at the beginning. So I'm laying down a piece of a ground rule. You have a brother in the city. I just heard a portion of a talk he made, Reverend Williams. The little part I heard, I couldn't disagree with. But I understand that he has put out, and I have, though I don't have his name on it, I'm told that these pamphlets that I was given are pamphlets that he has put out. No problem. I'm not going to react to all of that, just one of them in particular. But at the beginning of this, I want to make very clear what I'm going to try to do for the next hour to hour and a half. And I hope that you will sit through it. And whatever you choose to do about it, that's entirely up to you. But when you leave, I want you to be able to say whether you agree with me or not. I understood what that brother had to say. That's the main thing. I don't want you to leave saying, I didn't understand, or he said some things I just didn't understand. Disagreement is one thing, not understanding is another. And I don't want you to disagree because I didn't make what I'm saying clear. Disagree for some other reason, but not because the message was unclear. Now let me make this very clear at the outset. If you say you're from God, then you have a hell of an obligation. And among those obligations is to try to work on your congregation in such way so that they do not go out and engage in religious persecution. No brother or sister from any church has the right to go out and pick on a Muslim sister. You're both black from the get-up. Both members of a persecuted group of people in this country. Our history in America for 440-some years has been a history of hell. You have no right to go and pick on someone else because they don't think as you do religiously, especially when you do not really know what they think. You know why I'm talking like this from the giddy up? Because we are in the process of fulfilling something which if you and I stay alive the next year or 2 or 3, you're going to see. You're going to see the Muslims in America persecuted like no group has ever been persecuted in this country, fulfilling what you think happened to somebody else, some other place a long time ago. If I was a pastor, Muslim minister, whatever, and we felt we had the truth, should not I or you or the congregation see that truth as the birthright of those who don't know what you know? Listen to me very carefully. If you, this brother here, knows the truth of whatever, and the brother sitting next to him, he views him as a person that doesn't know something that's super important. God, top of the line knowledge of, top of the line being. Then you don't have the right to mistreat your brother. That's not the way to get him to see your position. If he's your brother, then what you have is, if you regard it as the truth, it's your birthright. It's his birthright too. Because you learned that 5 minutes or 5 days or 5 years before him does not make you better. But it puts on you an obligation. First, from God himself. The Holy Quran strongly urges those who say they have the truth to argue with others in the best manner. Now the word argue here is not vain, heated disputes. It's more like the arguments scientists make with one another when they're differing. Presumably scientists are in the pursuit of the truth. If they're not filled with vanity, whoever got the truth benefits us all. Follow me? Something like lawyers in the courtroom. If the lawyers are conducting themselves intelligently, following the rules of proper decorum, whether he be prosecutor or she be prosecutor, or whether defense counsel, the argumentation presumably or should be, and especially in the ideal situation, that each is an advocate for the truth. You can't have justice without truth. So when you have our Christian sisters verbally poking a Muslim sister at a supermarket, tell me who Farrakhan is. Right then, my dear sister, if you've done it, and I get the tape to whoever you get it to, that sister has done her own self a disservice. And that goes for you Muslim sisters or Muslims. If you say you have the truth, and of course that's our position. And it's not the truth of everything, it's the truth of certain things. You have no right to go and in any way mock or poke fun or abuse someone else if you view them as not having what you have. Now, if there's anybody on earth that is less justified in involving themselves in vain arguments, it's black people. We really don't have a right to argue in the negative sense with each other about anything. Discussion, yes. Intelligent debate, if you will, yes. Exchanges that generate heat and no light, you have no right. If you say you represent God, then your manner of presenting what you say is the wisdom of God should be ever increasingly reflected in your deportment in the way that you deal with other people. Let me make something else very clear, since the world saw it, and since I was alive back then, 40-some years ago, to know something about it. I know from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's mouth, he didn't necessarily want the black pastor. Let me know, brother, so that we don't miss a word. I don't want somebody saying that the wrong thing about what I'm saying. You know, because when you see something or hear something that's chopped, you don't know how much you're missing. Thank you. And this is too serious a subject that I have on my mind today. My subject is Jesus. And when you deal with Jesus, you're dealing with something that generates a lot of heat. Not too much light, but a lot of heat. And there's so many things you have to cover lucidly, clearly. Because when you deal with somebody's God, you're dealing with the core of how they see themselves. You got to be careful how you handle the roots of somebody's belief system. Especially if you say you got it right and they don't have it right. You follow me? And if there's any people who should be trying to treat each other with intelligence and gentleness, it's us. We don't want to add to 440 years of abuse. We got to get out of that. I was reading the current Final Call earlier today about the greater or the increase of the number of black women in the church house, in the prison house. That's horrible. Is that being discussed throughout Memphis, Tennessee? Is it a subject of big discussion among black folk and the causes that lead to it? No, probably not. It should be. It should be. All those brothers and sisters who call themselves leaders in this city should be reading this and jumping right on it and examining what is the situation in Memphis and throughout Tennessee. If you give a damn about your people. Because if you don't care about the woman, then you're finished. I'll get to that a little deeper later on by the help of Almighty God. I want to read you something out of a book that I wrote, that I quoted somebody else as having said, before I get to this point about the pastor. In a book, I think I'll go back a little bit. One of the things we hope to do a little bit of today is explain. Where there is no explanation of the deeper issues of life, there is no life, there is no understanding. And you cannot transform a people who are low down to something better unless you first explain. Without explanation, there's no motivation. Give me a reason to do what you want me to do. Follow me? Give me a reason. Reason with me. Don't just tell me. I may like what I got. Okay? And I'm going to give, not from my limited knowledge, but I want to give some advice in just a moment to the black pastors in this city that I know they can't, if they think about it for a second, or maybe they already know it, they cannot hardly turn it down. They might, because any of us can act like fools. And all of us, at least once in our life, has acted contrary to plain old common sense, haven't we? Now, this is a book about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, written by me. Okay. At one point, I know this is out of context, but at one point, I wrote this. Mr. Yinger, who at that time, Yinger, was a big man in the social sciences. This is over 20-some years ago when I first wrote this book, or this portion of the book. Wrote from what he called the perspective of the sociology of religion in accounting for the Muslims. If you may remember, those of you who was alive and those of you who have read, the tendency was and still is for people who want to explain the Nation of Islam, they don't ever use religion. Almost never do they use the Bible or the Holy Quran. They'll use something else, especially the so-called scholars. And part of what I wrote 20-some years ago was to deal, especially with the social scientists, the writers in general, but especially those who call themselves social scientists, meaning scientists of society, who are supposed to know what they're talking about, or who present themselves as that. Well, when they wrote from the perspective of the sociology of religion, what was curious to me at that time was these men and some religious members also of the community would draw from the social sciences rather than from what's called religion to deal with this group called the Nation of Islam. That is a hint, another suggestion, another indication of the weakness in the power of religion to explain. I'm about to show you a video in a minute that's going to take, I think, 10 minutes. A piece of something. Have you ever watched a program called Sightings? Have you? If you haven't, dear brothers and sisters, you should. Because it's dealing with something that we all are already involved in. And if you don't know about it, I want to help you realize something huge that's already taking place throughout the world, but especially in America, that the black pastor also must deal with. Now, I said this. I wonder if he represented the perspective of sociology accurately. More important is the question of whether or not this is the best that the social scientists, among whom Mr. Younger is a ranking member, can do to explain us. Is it not the task of the scientists? Now remember now, sooner or later, black leadership has to deal with the scientific explanation of how we got in what we in. And if there's a God, what is God's explanation of it? And what is the ultimate explanation? Not somebody's opinion as to how black folks really are going to get out of the predicament that we're in. And if, in fact, Muslims or whoever says the process is going on, then you should be able to give us an explanation that satisfies our need to understand you and to understand what's going on. I guarantee you most of our people don't know, why did God let us go down into slavery? If you can't deal with that, then your science, your theology, your whatever you got is inadequate. If you can't deal with how did we get in this, that we know. Why? We know what the white man's why was, but why, God, did you allow this? Okay. Now, see, because Mr. Younger called us, in effect, a gang. And he dismissed the Nation of Islam as just a gang of thugs. Okay, so I'm saying this. Is it not the task of the scientists to accurately discover, describe, explain, and predict according to real propositions or laws? Is it not true that the extent to which a scientist grasps the laws or principles governing the phenomena he has under study measures his ability to determine the exact nature and function of the subject he is studying? Certainly his capacity to understand may be greater than his manifested ability to explain, but his power to explain anything cannot exceed his insight into the laws governing that thing. The theologians are supposed to be religious, what? Scientists. A theologian presumably is a man or a woman who can explain God. But if you find you can't explain yourself, you don't know the nature of the problem of your people, the nature of it, that is, then we have a right to question the higher knowledge you say you got. If you can't lift 5 pounds, don't tell me you can lift 50. Those social scientists seeking to explain the Honorable Elijah Muhammad would do well to examine Professor George Holman's little book, The Nature of Social Science. Black scholars might be less willing to accept on face value the worth of the social sciences as white people teach them if they better understood them. Now, Professor Holman writes, and I'm going to quote him, "Though stating and testing," don't worry about if you don't get exactly the words. I hope you get the tape, because I want you to study this today. I want you to study this. We're not going to be very long, but we're going to be very concise. And trying to do it like that means you just lay some things down quite blunt that necessarily we just have to keep moving on, okay? Don't get stuck on some point because it's not totally clear, but this is going to be rather clear here, though it's a scientist writing, and he's trying to use his words very carefully. He says, "Though stating and testing relationships between properties of nature is what makes a science, it is certainly not the only thing a science tries to do. Indeed, we judge not the existence but the success of a science by its capacity to explain." He continues, "No big word is more often used in social science than the word theory. Yet, how seldom do we ask our students, or more significantly ourselves, what a theory is? But a theory of a phenomenon is an explanation of the phenomenon, that is something that's happening, and nothing that is not an explanation is worthy of the name theory. I am, of course, using quote-unquote explanation in the special sense of explaining why, under given conditions, a particular phenomenon occurs, and not in one of the vaguer senses in which we use the word, as when we explain how to drive a car by telling a youngster what to do with the controls in various circumstances. In this special sense, the explanation of a finding, whether a generalization of a proposition about a single event, is the process of showing that the finding follows as a logical conclusion, as a deduction from one or more general propositions under specified given conditions. Thus, we explain the familiar finding that there are 2 lows and 2 high tides a day by showing that it follows logically from the law of gravitation under the given conditions that the earth is largely covered with water, that it rotates on its axis, and that the moon moves in orbit around it. Then I said this, I wrote this. Of course, for a fuller explanation of the example he gave, we would have to go to the source of the law of gravitation, who is the maker of the earth. But the point here is that instead of explaining the Nation of Islam scientifically in a way that does themselves credit, social scientists such as Mr. Yinger has perverted the very meaning of the term explain when it came to the Nation of Islam, which the Honorable Elijah Muhammad at that time led. Now, I read that, which is important, also to get to this. In his book, The Ideal Prophet, Kamal Uddin certainly expressed the truth when he observed that, quote, there is nothing so inexpressibly mean and sordid in trying to advance one's religious beliefs by telling deliberate falsehoods about another religion. The Christian missionary, talking about white Christian men 200, 300, 400, 500 years ago. And this is a matter of historical record. And if you're a Christian, it shouldn't bother you if you're not involved in this, because it happened. The Christian missionary is the worst sinner in this respect. He does not even spare his own prophets, and I, for one, fail to understand his mentality. They have a novel system of recording actualities, for they know that they cannot appeal to facts in history. The force of repetition stands with them as the equivalent of proof. Stop right there. It's interesting to me to watch, of course I'm involved in it up over my head in the work of propagating what I believe in, but it's interesting to watch Jews repeat certain words again and again and again about Minister Farrakhan, even in the face of facts. To the extent where I saw with these 2 eyes, and we have it yet on record, we got the film, when they were just hammering him with this gutter religion thing. You could hear his words, and they had what they call, how they run words so the viewer can see the words, while the sound of his voice was going on. And you could see where they used the word gutter and where he used the word dirty. They changed that, not to think over the full context. Now, we all know that if we profess whatever we claim to be, and we're not measuring up to that, or if we're out there robbing banks or selling dope, we know we can't put that on the religion as such, unless your religion is a religion that teaches bank robbery. But there is no religion on this earth, as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, that teaches thou shalt rob banks. So you may be whatever, Hindu, Christian, Muslim, whatever, out here robbing banks. So somebody says, that's dirty. They're not talking about the religion that the other folks have who's not robbing the bank. They're talking about you. But my point is, these Jews repeated certain things, thinking that just repeating the same thing was going to get over. Now, what you need to look at, and what I hope to make crystal clear before you leave, is why is it that the Jews, with all their money and power, have not been able to stop Minister Farrakhan into submission? There's a reason for this. There must be something in this brother that is more powerful than he's just one man. Because yes, he has friends and advisors and family, but don't care how much friends, advisors, and family you got, being faced with that kind of pressure, and overcoming it, has to mean that there's something in you superior to that which is coming against you. Common sense, but what's the explanation of it? And you're not going to get away with saying, by a jive set of reasoning process that includes leaving the bulk of the minister's speech out, taking advantage of the ignorance of people because you want to hold your congregation. Hold it now, hold it. Oh, no, stop that. I want you to hear, I'm reasoning. And say, well, look, Farrakhan says he's Jesus. Now, you know that's going to cause people to say, what? What? Naturally. Now, that's designed not to advance what you believe in a righteous fashion. It's designed to make your brother look bad. That ain't the way to do it. You follow me? That's not the way to do it, and that's not going to work. But what it's going to lead to, probably before this year is out, is something that's good for Minister Farrakhan and something that's also absolutely good for the pastor and his congregation. But I can't get to that right away. Not running no game on you. I just can't say everything all at once. Just like I didn't eat my meal last night in one go. If I did, I wouldn't be here right now. But I got to walk through something that's not so pleasant first. I have to do it. But with respect for your humanity. But I have to tell you, brother, you don't get over by telling a lie or a half-truth. Because when people find out the truth, they look at you funny. Tell the truth. And if you're a man of God, damn it, you tell the truth or don't nobody follow you. If you lose your congregation, so what if you tell them the truth? Now, to repeat certain statements while ignoring rebutting facts is a sure method of carrying conviction to the minds of thousands. These writers have adopted this plan. They play upon the mob psychology and produce the desired effect. In writing against other religions, the popular course is this. First of all, one writer says something by way of suggestion or insinuation. The next after him declares the suggestion a possibility. The possibility then is converted into a theory by a third writer, while the fourth tries to make a fact out of the theory. Thus, a wish in 4 or 5 metamorphoses becomes a well-established fact, especially when other religions or civilizations come under their criticism. Very interesting statement. The next section had to do with a quote from a book by a man named Domhoff, written 30-some years ago, Who Rules America? And he points out how the people you never see, they're super rich white folks. Because ain't nobody black in America super rich. You might be rich in the spirit, but you're not rich in the pocket. How they manipulate the press. Now stop and think on a simple example. Now probably I'm not trying to insult nobody's intelligence by giving you an oversimplification, but I hope I'm accurate with this. White folks don't like where Minister Farrakhan visited. He went to what they call rogue nations. So the press started beating up on him, calling him a traitor. Hell of a statement for white folks to call a black man a traitor. Hell of a statement. When they ain't never treated us as citizens. In fact about it, and black Christian and black Muslim will agree, white folks have never even given us a dirty, insincere apology. Not even a dirty one. The American government has never said, niggas, we sorry. I know that the Baptists made what you call an attempt. It was too weak. Apologize to the Indians, yeah. And don't even mind calling the Indians nation. But if we begin to even hint like we want some kind of independence, everybody goes crazy on the white side of the fence. White folks told lies on the minister. Then the government says we're going to investigate the lies that we helped to tell on the man. They didn't say it like this, but this is what it comes down to. You tell lies on the man, then you're going to investigate your own lies, and you determine that your lies are the truth. Then you want to prosecute him and you ain't got the guts to bring him into court, in the Congress. Then you say, we're going to talk about him in the court, and then you go ahead and try him, and don't let none of his witnesses have a say. Now, that's kangaroo court to the max. And to do this before the world. You know, when people steal, they usually do it when it's dark. Huh? Most of the time when we do wrong, we don't want nobody to see it. If you and I are going to do some wrong together, we don't want nobody to see that wrong. These dudes are doing this in the public. C-SPAN. In the press. I'll repeat it again. I want you to get it clear. We're going to rely on you, Farrakhan. Then we investigate the lie, and we determine that the lies we put on you are true. Now we're going to prosecute you, but we don't want you to be there to refute what we're going to say, so we're going to bring our experts who are with us in these lies. And then we decide among ourselves that you're guilty. Kind of like what they did to Jesus, huh? Now, my dear brothers and sisters, it's a very serious subject. I don't necessarily think every one of you are going to agree with what I'm going to say in a minute, especially when there's not enough time to explain. When you're dealing with the subject of Jesus, you're dealing with a highly explosive area of reality. And yet, to unravel the mystery that Jesus is tied up in is to unravel the mystery of God himself. If in fact Jesus was and is God and came in the flesh, whether or not he was born of a virgin, means we have a definite connection with him because we're in the flesh, are we not? If he took on our nature, as we're told, then we have a connection with him. And if he came down to save folk from their sin, roughly 16 or so 100 years before they enslaved us, the question is, do we get any action? If Jesus came 2,000 years ago, and he was a white man, and not long after he went to the Father and he's in heaven with God in power, I would like to know, what does he think about what happened to us? I know we're told don't hate white folks. But I want to know, forget us, what does he think about it? What does Jesus think about it? And I accept. I see him as the Messiah. Why don't you? Why don't you ask that question? If you ask that question, you're going to find they do not accept him as Messiah for the same reason we Muslims don't. Serious question. The Muslim world believes in Jesus. They also believe he, not Muhammad 14 centuries ago, will come back at the end of the world. And they also believe, I don't say all believe the same, because naturally scholars or those who spent more time studying have a sharper view than the person that's a teenager and hasn't spent too much time studying. But they believe that the one called, could you get that for me please, brother? I don't want to have to leave this mic. And give me something to write with. Oh, it's on top? It's probably in front of my face? Yes, it is too. I just want to put this word up here. Now, that's a word. It's in Arabic. It's English transliteration. But in English, it has a double meaning. The top meaning is self-controlled one, the self-guided one who comes to guide others. The Muslim world believes this person, when he comes, he'll set up equity and justice throughout the earth. That's their position. The Jews don't look at that name, but they have one in their mind. They call him the Messiah, to make it simple in English. They see that the Messiah they believe in is going to do the same thing. The Christians say he's coming back to do what? The same thing. The Muslim world says the Mahdi and one called Isa, which roughly speaking means Jesus. That's what the Muslim world believes. The Jews, they look forward to a man called the Messiah, and they expect him to be born like all men and women are born. Go read their writings. They expect him to be nothing spooky about his birth, but they do expect him to have and exercise extraordinary power. And the Christians believe what? Messiah, Jesus, but Christ is usually the word used. Generally speaking, Christ and Messiah seemingly are interchangeable, but not really. Messiah loosely means anointed. Anointed. With what? To do what? To carry out whatever the purpose of the anointing is. And you read that many kings and prophets were anointed in the Old Testament. The word Messiah is widely used, but there is the Messiah, a specific individual who completes the task of straightening out the mess that they say Satan originated. Christ is another meaning for it. It also means the crusher of the wicked. Now, some of you may have heard, and if you haven't, the minister hasn't just started saying this. He said it from the giddy up. One of the things he is about the business of doing morning, noon, and night is breaking down artificial barriers between black brothers and sisters, and even throughout the earth, but mainly starting with his own people. And one of the things that divides us up is labels. And most of us have poor vocabularies. Most of us do not like dictionaries. We don't like them. You insulted me, brother. No, I'm not. Go and test us. We use a lot of words, the meaning of which we do not understand. Oftentimes, we get in a lot of trouble with each other because we mean different things with the same words. Get you a dictionary, man. Get you a dictionary, sister, and get more than one. Because white folks don't put it all in one book. They can't make money like that. It's like the Japanese and the cameras. I'm a photographer. You can't get all the goodies in no one camera. They could do it like that if they want to. Some of the companies would go out of business. All right. Now, the person, here's our position. That the person that the Jews have in mind, the description that they give of him, based on the prophet's predictions, the words in the Old and New Testament about this same person, and the words that the Muslims have about Esau, we're saying it's the same individual. Got that so far?
Yes, sir.
That this man, and this man is the same man. I want to get it real clear with you. Now, explanation is another thing. Remember that. It takes less time to state the case than to back up the case or explain it. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us this, that God himself had his own purpose, which he kept as a secret from the world as to why he allowed us to go down in slavery. Now, Pastor Williams, one of his pamphlets, Why God Had to Allow Slavery. I like what he said here. He said, you may be asking, why would God put our African ancestors through slavery? Now, he says God put. I'm sure the brother knows white folks did this. But put in the sense that if he allowed it, he was involved in this activity. By reason of having power to stop it, but yet letting it go down, that he's involved in it. Like God agreed with Satan to let Job be punished, catch hell. Both of them are involved in that, but they have different motivation. Jesus told Peter and some of his disciples, Satan has desired you. Simon, Simon, Satan desires you to sift you as wheat. And what? I've agreed, in so many words. There's a reason. Well, the reasoning in the righteous is not the same as the reasoning in the wicked, for what appears to be the same thing. Now, he says it's so unfair to explain this it would be good to go back and read the biblical story of Joseph, Genesis 37 through 50. And it is good to do that. Because of the jealousy of Joseph's brothers, he was put in a pit. They sold him into slavery. He was sold to a high-ranking Egyptian officer and was promoted to be overseer of his home. He was later falsely accused by the officer's wife of rape because he would not have sex with her. The officer believed his wife and had Joseph put in prison. While in prison, he interpreted the dreams of two men who were associated with Pharaoh. Pharaoh had a dream later. One of the men that had been put in prison remembered how Joseph's interpretation of his dream came true. Pharaoh then sent for Joseph. Joseph's interpretation of Pharaoh's dream led to the king saving his nation. Interesting, huh? The saving of the nation came from a totally unexpected source. For that, Pharaoh exalted Joseph to the top position in all Egypt under him. Famine came in all the land, no food anywhere except for Israel. However, by God having Joseph over all the food in Egypt, he was then able to have a place where Jacob, or Israel, and all his family could come, and God's seed, God's people, could be preserved. Joseph later told his brothers that it was God's plan to have him in Egypt to protect them and keep them alive. There it is. God had a reason. And he allowed this to happen because of something he was seeing down the road. And the trouble and the pain and the misery that Joseph went through actually was part of a qualifying process to enable him to carry out the big function that God had in mind for him to do later on. So now the pastor continues, after Joseph's brothers had repented for what they had done to him, Joseph made a statement to them that I think is representative of God's purpose for the black man coming to America and the reason for slavery. Genesis 50, 19 through 20. Fear not, for I am in the place of God. But as for you, you thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass, as it is this day, to save much people. He continues, black America, aren't we in the place of God? Even though it's a serious question he's raising now. Even though the slave masters thought evil against us, God meant it to our good so that spiritual Egypt and spiritual Ethiopia might be saved. Now, what does that mean? I'm not going to presume to say what was in the brother's mind. But does it have any bearing on America? We're in America. Okay? Is the brother here saying that in some way, saving, the prospects of saving of America, something like that is involved in our being in America? It's a little bit deeper than that. And then the brother closes off this pamphlet by saying, or this part of it by saying this, or part of what he says. I'm not going to read the whole thing. He says, sometimes God has to permit you to go through the slave pits and to prisons in order to get you to the palace. That's true. Joseph had to go through the pit and the prison to get to the place where God wanted him in the king's palace. God had to permit the early church to be persecuted in order to get the gospel out. Yet God did not cause the persecution. Principalities are always present to pervert the plans and purposes of God. He quotes scripture places, or gives places where you can read this as he goes along. The world system is being influenced by evil spirits. So let us not hate the white man. He is not your enemy. Yes, Satan used the slave master to perpetuate evil against you. Again, he's quoting some passages. Satan entered him to circumvent God's plan and purposes. The Lord or Allah. However, Satan wanted to stop it. So he used slavery, segregation, lynchings, hanging, racism, and prejudice through the slave master to destroy the black man. Now, I don't know that in this pamphlet, no way. I don't. Maybe the brother has dealt with it elsewhere. But the question has to be at some point raised. Are they to be punished? Are white people to be punished by God for what they did? We do know that Judas was punished for what he did he not? Is that not a fact? He hung himself, but he was punished. To say that Satan used the white man to do these things. Are you saying the white man has absolutely, he has no environment, he's just a rag doll? He's like a wind-up clock? He's not the poison. He's just a glass that contained the poison. And you drank it and you died. What are we talking about? We got to be very careful, and we got to be very honest about it. Especially when we start talking about what was in God's mind. I'm not going to beat up on my brother on this. What I would like to get to before we leave is why. From what we were taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And you weigh this and see if it explains why we're here. Or at least begins to introduce the deeper reasons for it. Now, he says, yes, sir. He says, remember, God's chosen people, Israel, had been in slavery for 400 years in Egypt. That means the black man enslaved the Jews. I don't agree with that. There's no evidence at all outside of the Bible that Egypt was ever the house of slaves for Jews. And you know the interesting thing about it? And you can argue this with yourself if you wish to. I'm going to make the statement. You go and deal with it. You cannot find a 400-year period, Genesis and Exodus. You can't find a 400-year period in which anybody served anybody else. Abraham once upon a time didn't know God, and God then made himself known to Abraham. He introduced himself to Abraham. From that point forward, Abraham was no more a slave. A righteous prophet of God can be persecuted, but not a slave. You follow me? Once God enlightens him, he's enlightened. He had sons, Jacob. He had Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. Even Joseph's enslavement wasn't really enslavement in the sense that he did not know who his God is. The worst kind of enslavement is when you don't know who you are and you don't know who God is. And even worse than that is when you don't know that you don't know. But then you don't miss it. You're not even aware of it. He says Egypt is in Africa, the land of Ham. Fine. At this time, the United States had been the main Christian nation in all the world. Israel has never received Jesus as the Messiah. Our ancestors were probably not even aware of the new land in America. And that's an important point, because the Bible says this, that the end can't come until the gospel has been preached throughout the earth. Who were the preachers of the gospel? The 1st century, 2nd century, 3rd, 4th, 5th. White people. Did the Eskimos get a shot at it? When the white man caught up with the Eskimo, he enslaved him, or did the best he could to knuckle him under. The Indian was over here. Did he meet the gospel? Yes. What did he get? He was enslaved. The gospel was taught in such way to the Indian that to the white man's power, according to his ability, he tried to enslave them, and to the extent he didn't capture their mind, he certainly made them physically to knuckle under him. In fact, about it, you know this already to be a fact. We don't have to argue this. Anybody who knows history knows white folks went all over the world using religion and military might to force darker people under their will. That's a fact. And we also know white folks still are working feverishly to keep everybody under their feet. You go to Africa, one of the things that struck me 2 years ago, I had never been south, what you call black Africa, till 2 years ago. And at one point I said to Brother Akbar, I said, wait a minute, brother. I'm noticing all of these countries, we're in 5 countries. I said, man, these people are wearing used clothes. I've seen this kind of stuff in America. He said, it is used clothing from America and Europe. Oh, man. That was like the clothing they gather up for little or nothing. And they want to keep the people, and in some countries, the white people have actually worked to take our sisters out of modest dress. Oh, I don't want to talk too much about that. That takes too much time. We'll get away from the main subject, which is Jesus. But do you know that even in Africa today, to make phone calls to sometime the neighboring government, your call got to go be routed through either Paris or London? Right. That's a hint. That tells us something. White folks want to maintain their rule. And you know, the white man has never said, look, I've been wrong. Our ancestors did you people terrible. Look, let's sit down and see what we can do about making amends. I didn't do that. Hey, man, I'm sorry about it. Think about this now. They have never done this. Don't you know we are owed that? And there's no kind of way you're going to explain away what they did. You can't explain it away. Explain it, Try to, but explain it away as being dishonest. Don't come telling me about 6 million Jews were killed. That was horrible. But you and I don't even know how many of us were slaughtered in the process of making slaves. We don't even really know. I've read 100 million, I've read 150 million, I don't know. I have to depend on what I read. I wasn't born, and if I was, you have to be God to do that kind of counting. And you know already what we have gone through was fantastically evil. Huh? If you don't know anything about it, it's because you deliberately were kept foolish, or you have now reached the age when you should be interested and you don't really care about your people. Either way, you messed up. Now, brothers and sisters, we have to deal honestly with this subject, very honestly with it. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us there was a man 2,000 years ago who, for the bulk of his life, thought he was the Messiah. He was a black man, 5'6", about 130 pounds. He was never married. There was a woman in his life that he wanted to marry if he was successful in his mission. But it didn't work out. When he realized that he was not who he thought he was, that he was 2,000 years too soon to set up the kingdom of God, then he decided to give his life for the truth he taught. He saw the Messiah coming, but he realized it was not he. It's a matter of fact. Nobody, I don't think, will argue it who studied the subject. 2,000 years ago, where the Jews were in what's called the Middle East, they had this intense expectation of the coming of the Messiah. Right now, you have a lot of black brothers especially, some white men too. And you're going to see the number increase as we near the year 2000. People believing that they are the Messiah. Some of these people are sincerely wrong and others are just outright crooks. A person can make a mistake about themselves, but be of such a good heart that they actually have a convincing effect on others that they are who they are not. You follow what I'm saying? Let me make this part real clear. We're talking about the man 2,000 years ago. I'm telling you now in a very capsule form what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told us for 40 years that he was taught by his teacher. We were taught by him that if this man had not decided to give his life for what he taught, we never would have heard of him. Now look, you know right now, despite modern communications, you see how quickly things can get bent out of shape, how rumors can be passed on, huh? Despite C-SPAN and all of that, lies can be told and people can get things mixed up. Sometimes it's not even a matter of lies, just get it all mixed up. Well, back then you didn't have no radio, no TV. Most people didn't know how to read and write, and they were filled with superstitious beliefs. The idea of a man being born from a virgin, from some god in the sky, that was rife throughout the world. It was even set up Caesar. They called themselves gods, did they not? Paganism was based on this kind of thing. So that was nothing new. But dear brothers and sisters, you cannot prove that Jesus 2,000 years ago ever said he was born of a virgin. You don't have no word where he said that. Now let's see. Can it happen? Sister, you may say you believe Mary was a virgin after Jesus was born. That's just your say. But you do not believe that can never happen to you. And if you tell us that, we instantaneously will see you as a liar or crazy. Or maybe just some kind of little joke. Go tell your husband that. He was away 20 months. He comes back as a 12-month-old baby. The Holy Ghost, honey. It was all right. Just the Holy Ghost. Overshadowed me. How you produce a shadow, sister? You know how it's done? Light coming from one source in a certain direction, something physical blocks a portion of the light, and that produces a shadow. We can argue theologically. We can argue all day over it. But the argument is easily won if you're on the side of truth. Yes, Matthew uses the word virgin. I can read as well as you. We can all read that. But the question, my dear brothers and sisters, is the writer, whoever Matthew was, the writing there, was it an accurate translation of Isaiah chapter 7? No. No. The word back there in the Hebrew meant a young woman of marriageable age. A different word in Hebrew was used when you wanted to convey the idea of virgin. That's a specific woman. Something specific you're pointing out about her, correct? Okay. We can go into Matthew and deal with the fact that we all know that the Jews, it's all in the Old Testament, and it's implied in two places in the New Testament, Matthew and Luke, and it's elsewhere mentioned by Paul and others, that this Jesus figure is to be a descendant of David. David has to be one of his ancestors. Now look, you can say what you want to say. And I don't mind, we can deal with this on another time. You pay my ticket, don't put me on a Jive Cessna, put me on a real good plane. If you want to deal with it, we can deal with this on a Saturday at length. We'll be just summarizing some points right now. Joseph. Both Luke and Matthew have a bunch of men and women back here as his ancestors. Right? Yeah. Mary. Ordinarily, man and woman come together sexually and offspring or children are produced. That's how we all got here. If anybody here got here otherwise, raise your lying hand. Okay, we're all in agreement on that. Jesus. Why this emphasis on virgin? Why does it even have to be talked about? There's no way to prove it. Nobody right now can scientifically prove that a woman can give birth to anything except a man be first present. Okay, so what is that about? Well, it's been already proven. White folks have already admitted the truth. They told on each other. They told on each other for long centuries. White folks, you believe this way or we kill you. It's what they told their own people. And the situation degenerated into what they call the Dark Ages in Europe. How in the world could they have a Dark Ages when the Pope had all that power? People were being preached to. I mean, this ain't got nothing to do with you, brothers and sisters. No, you, brother pastor, you wasn't around there. You're not white. Wherever you wasn't there. White folks say that was the Dark Ages. What made it dark? The people were ignorant. The masses were ignorant. It's only been really in recent decades that the Catholics allowed their people really to read the Scripture. That's a fact. Okay. Now, according to Matthew traces the ancestry of Jesus way back there to Abraham. But Luke does something that's real heavy. He traces, the so-and-so, the son of so-and-so, the son of so-and-so, the son of so-and-so, and he goes back and he says Adam was the son of God. How'd that happen? How'd it happen? The word son of all the way through is the same, including the Greek for Adam being the son of God. Explain that. Did God interact with a woman and produce Adam? That's a legitimate question. You may not like it, but it's legitimate. How'd it happen? Tell me about it. How did it happen? How did Adam become God's son? You don't know. Just say you don't know. It's better to say we don't know. Keep on going. If we haven't been taught it and haven't been backed up, the best we can say, yes, I read it, but I don't know about that. I mean, I don't see where there's no woman. I'd like to know how do you do that. I mean, if he just got some dirt and boom, 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 and there's Adam, fine. Why call him son? If you just snatch you some dirt and blew into it, and there he is, why you got to use the word son? What is being told and not told? The Holy Quran in many places uses the word we for Allah. And in many places in the Bible, the word us is used for God. Elohim is one of the names of God. Well, in the other language, Elohim is translated God in certain places, has a masculine and a feminine content, and is God in the plural. Let us make man. That us there is Elohim. That's the E. How'd that happen? How'd that happen now? Come on. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad told us, his teacher told him, that the more accurate translation is in the Greek or Hebrew, but we don't speak ancient Hebrew, nor do we speak Koine Greek, which was the common Greek of the people in that day. We speak English, right? Okay. So unless you know this, now, you know something? There was a brother pastor. We wound up becoming very good friends. I often think about this brother. One of the most honest men I've ever met in my life. When he and I both moved to Phoenix, Arizona in the same year, 1965. He got his master's writing about the Nation of Islam. He was a Baptist preacher. But he sincerely believed where he was coming from. We had many interesting discussions. You might call them private debates. But I respected that brother. Though there were several points we just did not agree on. But with the passage of time, he went through an internal crisis. And he found he could no longer continue preaching. Warmed over garbage is what he later on called it to his congregation, when he started thinking more and more deeper over what he was taught in the seminary. Conflict mixed with the problem. Now, hear me very carefully now. I want to share something with you very important. This brother wound up leaving the church. I don't know all the reasons, and I didn't get into that. It's not my business what may have happened. But I'm raising this point to say he later on wanted to become a Muslim minister, but he died from a heart attack. And I never forgot that, because he just had gotten married for the second time, was in a car on his way back to Phoenix, where we were to get together over dinner, coffee, or whatever, and begin really getting into it. But I watched the changes that took place in him. He left the church, he went back to college, and got a PhD in education. This man was absolutely dedicated to the rise of his people. And a lot of black pastors like that. The black pastor, as Elijah Muhammad said, is the natural leader of our people. But I'm going to raise a point here that's very important in a minute about this. One of the things I said to that pastor one day in 1965, around the time we were first getting together, I said, brother, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad does not want your church. Doesn't want you even to leave the church. But he wants you to learn the truth and preach that to your people. There was one pastor I was told by Elijah Muhammad in Oakland, California, 4 years earlier. Elijah Muhammad said the same thing through me to that pastor, and said, even if your congregation leaves you, I will support you and help you get another congregation. I'm going to tell you this. Let me jump way ahead partly to the end of this talk. I'm only going to talk just a few more minutes, and I'm going to bring this to an end. He said this, that one day the churches will become mosques. Now that may at first sound very offensive, but not when you understand what we're talking about. If the word mosque means place of worship, you say, well, the church is already that. Yes, but what are you worshiping? See, are you worshiping God, the Holy Ghost, Jesus? What are you worshiping? What really is being worshipped? Would you do better if you knew better? Are you worshiping what the white man taught us to believe in, and you just believe it because you were raised in it, and you've heard something about this Islam stuff, and it seems crazy, so you reject it? Your heart is in this. Our people are yearning to be free. And our people, as with white people, are getting angrier and angrier. Our people want good leadership. And one thing that leadership must be about the business of doing is telling the truth. And when it comes to God, you've got to be accurate. Very accurate. That brother, like Martin Luther King, studied in the seminary. You can't study long in the seminary without finding out points like this. You're face to face with this from the getting up. But the thing is, if you don't know how to deal with it, then okay, that's understandable. You follow me? There's a lot of things highly educated brothers and sisters who are deep into theology don't understand about what they are studying.
Right.
But they don't know how to deal with it. And oftentimes there's nobody to talk to. And sometimes you don't want to lose what you got because you're afraid you go into certain things and you'll be busted. But you had to deal with this. The Muslim theologians, likewise, many of them in the same position with respect to the word we. Let me hurry up and drive on to the end of this. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that Esau 2,000 years ago was born from Mary and Joseph, who were childhood sweethearts, who agreed at the age of 6 to get married. Years later, he came back to ask the father for her hand, and the father rejected him. He was a poor, rough carpenter. The father was a wealthy man, and any father wants his daughter to live at least when she's going to marry you on the level that she is in before she is married to you. The father turned him down. He left and got married to another woman. 6 years, had 6 children. Time passed. Mary would not accept any of the other young men that the father brought to her for consideration. More time passed. The father one day had to visit the construction of a new mosque, and he gave his daughter a made-up beard, a goat's beard, and some clothing, his clothing. Wanted her to wear that when she went out to feed the stock. He would be gone about 3 or so days. While he was gone, a dust storm arose. I live out in the desert. We know what that is. You don't have that here. You got grass. But a dust storm arose and it blotted out visibility. And under that condition, she exercised a power that all you sisters got and all you brothers got, and I got it too, but it's dormant. We have if I'm going to use the simple language, radio in the head. This brain is the most powerful sending and receiving plant that exists. Ours is messed up behind dope, wine, whiskey, hog, smoking, and foolishness in general. So our power is like sleep. But the power is there. Okay. She called to Joseph. She loved him. Because she didn't see him, didn't change that. And he picked up and came to where she was. They talked over the situation, and he got her to agree to let him go out using the disguise, and she went with him, and they fed the stock. He left after 3 days. Some time passed, and she began taking on some weight. And the father looked, asked her about her eating habits. Nothing changed. More time passed. He began to get worried. He began plucking on his beard, pulling some of it out. Finally, he kept pressing her, and then she confessed. She was pregnant with Joseph's baby. That meant, in that part of the world, death. And it meant the father, and there was no brothers, had to do it. Well, that would drive you up the wall, man, if you love your daughter. Law or no law, right? Okay. Meantime, Joseph was, I wouldn't say accosted, but an old woman, a prophetess, met him, who was divinely guided to go to him and tell him she knew he was the father of that child. And the child is going to be killed by the Jews who are expecting a certain individual at that time. And if he's not protected, they'll kill him. They'll find him and kill him. And the way it's written, there's something to that about killing off a lot of children. And white folks got that going among us. That's another whole subject, but it's not unrelated to what we're talking about right now. He went rather to the father, explained the situation. I'm giving it to you rather quickly, but in the interest of time. And the father agreed. And one of the stalls was hollowed out, made to look like it was loaded with straw, and there is where she gave birth to this boy baby. Black woman, a black man, a black baby. Now, he served as the midwife. Not the way it is right now. In this world, money is made off you before you're born, when you're born, all through your life, and when you die. And then they'll have anniversaries to get more money off you after that if you're some sort of celebrity. And one day, all of us brothers are going to be taught how to be the midwife. It brings about a closer connection between you and your wife and the child. Oh, yeah. Now, you know, a name is a big thing among some people on this face of the earth. Having a good name. Part of what motivated Joseph and also the father was, the mother said, or rather the old woman said, that among the things she told him was that as long as this child lives and does his work, your name will live as being the father. When he told that to the who turned out to be the grandfather, he took that idea for himself too. Just grabbing at anything to save his daughter. Okay. The child was born. Joseph put Mary and the child on a fast camel and sent the child and the mother to Egypt. That's where he grew up. That's where he went to school. As we were talking yesterday, and it's in the current issue of my article in this current paper, Farrakhan Answers Critics, Report on World Tour of the Black Community. In here I have an article. And the article includes some scriptures that really pastors in general, but all of us need to consider. Because the scripture talks about a people who will be found by God blind, spiritually blind, deaf, and dumb at the end of the world. And the man that would be utilized by God to raise these people is also referred to as blind, spiritually. That did not fit Jesus 2,000 years ago. He was never that. Highly educated young man. Well, in his teens, an old man, wise man who knew his future, met him, used an excuse to get up to him. Got up to him, let him know who he was, and then taught him how to protect himself, how to use this radio in the head. Later, he went walking. He walked from Cairo to Egypt, and he began his mission teaching the Jews. He taught them for 22 years. They chased him to kill him. They could never catch him. He knew how to go to sleep on them. And when they moved toward him, he'd wake up and go the other way. He was a highly righteous, highly wise man. But he's dead. He got his largest audience on a Saturday. Not long before that is when he, from studying the scripture and trying to understand the problem he was having, he came to understand who these people were at that time, and that they had 2,000 more years to live. Now that means you got to deal with the white man devil thing. There's no myth. The white man is really that by nature. The white man is a man who was grafted from black people. He didn't come about naturally. Something had to happen. I want to come to that in just a moment, but it's really silly for us, just because some of us don't like Elijah Muhammad's teaching, to just dismiss it. When he offered over $100,000, $10,000 if you find any part of his teaching wrong, and finally he offered white folks $100,000. Any one of them want to prove that what he's teaching is wrong. You know, money motivates a lot of people. It was a way of saying, look, rather than just try to mock what I'm saying, prove that what I'm saying is false. And white folks never argued with him. Black folk did. We served as the white man's defense counsel, attorney. But white people never argue this. Don't you know we Muslims over all those years had a lot of interaction with all kind of white folks, a lot of scholarly white people. Don't you know Elijah Muhammad had much interaction with them? Yes, we know they said they don't like it and it's hate teaching, but no, let's brush that aside. Is it biologically true? Is it historically accurate? If something like this happened at a certain point in time, back yonder, there's nothing to argue about. Either happened or it didn't. They either are what they are, forget the name, they either are people who were made from us or they are not. And when you get into that, you're getting into a whole lot, because that begins to help you see who you are. Let's put that aside just for a moment. Now, this man taught for 22 years. When he realized he was 2,000 years ahead of time and wasn't who he thought he was, he got disappointed, and he decided to give his life. There was a reward out for him, $1,500 if bought in. alive. 2,500 in gold is bought in dead, worth more dead than alive. And he began teaching a crowd of about 35, 36 people under a Jew's awning. A store was raining. People were under the awning because of the rain. He began teaching. He had kind of a captive audience. After a while, the storekeeper, who was a Jewish man, got kind of irritated because the people were not buying. He said, if you let me continue teaching, I will get them to buy. More time passed. The people didn't buy. They were interested in what he had to say. And the storekeeper said he was going to call the authorities, and he did. And 2 black officers were sent. And they both rushed to touch him, and they argued or disputed with each other over who touched him first. He asked, could he settle it? They said yes. He said, the one on the right touched me about 0.3 of a second before the one on the left. That's sensitive. So the other brother left, and the other one took him to the authorities, and on the way began reasoning with him about the fact that you're worth more dead than alive. I got a large family. If you let me kill you, you wouldn't even feel the sting of death. Besides, they want to torture you. He said, come do it. And they stopped in front of a boarded-up store, and there's where he died, from the officers plunging strong into him. A short sword, but with such force that it pinned him against the board, and he died in the form of a cross. He didn't die on a cross. Now that, in essence, is that man's history. That's the historical Jesus. One other thing about him that's significant, then one large thing about him. His father Joseph claimed the body and had the body embalmed to last for 10,000 years. And let's jump way over about 1,000 or so years later. That's what the popes knew and know. And that's at the base of the start of the Crusades. They wanted to get the body back. You brothers who join the Masons, you go so far, you can become a 33rd degree Mason by the time you're 30, 35 years old. But you never find a white man that young who's a Shriner. Never. He's in his 60s, 50s, late 50s or 60s. It's a fact. They earn their way through it. You buy your way through it. That's not mocking you, brother, because after you come out, you don't know what you got. You go through the cable tour. You don't know that you're rehearsing what you're really rehearsing. That's why they always wind up in the ruling position. Because they're learning something. But it's given to them over time slowly because it's a shock. And they have to get it in stages. They got to qualify. And when you find them on top of what this is all about, when you meet a white Shriner, you're looking at a white man that's very, very knowledgeable. There are lesser white men who sometimes will call you Sam. Brother, the white folks have taken the shoe shine jobs just about. But you older brothers know that the white man used to call you Sam, sometimes Shine. What was he saying? He was signifying. He was saying, ha, 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 I know who you are, but you don't. That's what he was saying. Samson, like the sun, the strong man, now he's been reduced by Delilah. That which, the word Delilah means enfeebler. He's been weakened. His eyes are put out. He don't know what's going on. You shine in the shoes, and he's calling you Sam. Sam means like the sun. It's signifying. You follow what I'm saying? Well, a lot of people do this. They sometimes talk right over our heads. Though that's happening less and less as we get wiser and wiser. It used to happen far more than it does right now. Now, the Father embalmed the body to last 10,000 years. The popes know this. And the white Shriners have to pay $6,000 and get a certificate from the Pope to go and see the body. There are white people in some books that are on the market now that all but tell this. They all but tell it. You got a movie coming up in a few days. I think it's called July the 4th or Independence Day. We want to get to that in a moment because I don't want you to leave here without knowing how this world is going to be destroyed. I heard Pastor Williams said it's going to be fiery. He's right. But you need to tell him what the fire is. Now, my dear brothers and sisters, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that God taught him that the most significant thing about that man and his mother is this. Holy Quran, chapter 23, verse 50, where it teaches that this man and her son were made by God to be a sign. Yes, Prophecy is not only in words, it is in some of the actions of the people that are divinely moved by God to show forth a picture. But it's even deeper than that. Have you ever heard the expression, events cast their shadow before themselves? Okay? The more you can see into people, the further you can see what they're going to do. Insight is the basis of foresight. Okay? The point is that not only is it to give a picture, the lives of all the prophets, the circumstances under which they lived, what all went down gives us a picture, but also it has a ripple effect and helps in the formation of all that we're going through today. That's pretty deep. And that's what I mean by showing, my dear brothers and sisters, don't take this subject of Jesus lightly. You're dealing with the subject of God himself. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, take this passage, use it with the four Gospels, and you'll have the clear understanding, if you use it properly, of the whole Jesus reality. If I may put it like this is the key. Take it, insert it into the four Gospels, spiritually speaking, and turn it, and out will come the clearest picture ever of who Master Farad Muhammad is, who visited this country in the early 30s. Elijah Muhammad, who was one of us born in Georgia, and the rest of us, even Minister Farrakhan. You yourself are more involved. Each one of you as an individual is involved with Jesus in a way that, the real Jesus, in a way that you never dreamed. But if you stick with me just about 20 more minutes, you'll find that out. Have you ever read that expression in the Bible about the righteous being born to be conformed to the image of his son? Huh? You ever heard that expression? That makes each one of those people a little Jesus, doesn't it? Have you ever read the history of Paul? Didn't Paul eventually reach a state where he said, follow me? And yet he wasn't saying don't follow Jesus, according to the Bible. He was saying, in effect, that, if I may paraphrase, he became so close to Jesus that following him was following the Jesus who was physically absent with the Father. He was saying that I'm becoming closer and closer and closer to the Jesus, my teacher. That's what he's saying. And that's part of the answer to the whole controversy about whether Mr. Farrakhan calls himself Jesus or not. It's a very simple thing. But yeah, when you doctor the tape up, you can make anybody say anything. You can make a man curse himself out in a tape if you play with it long enough. Now, my dear brothers and sisters, I had a series of scriptures that I wanted to cite. What I'm going to do, Brother Minister Anthony, is just leave them with you, for you all to look them up at your leisure, because it takes time to do this. But I'm just going to hit the points plain as day, knowing that every bit of what I'm saying is in the book. But we got to go beyond just quoting something, because people quote Bible and Quran all day. Where did the Bible and Quran come from? Sometimes a person says something so beautiful. Ooh, we say, I want that expression, because it expresses better something we want to say. But that ain't what this is about. Are we dealing with some human beings who wrote these books, who you call God, who foresaw the situation that we're in? That's another whole story, isn't it? Now, my dear brothers and sisters, you read about the 24 elders, didn't you, in Revelation? In Surah chapter 4 of Revelation, we read where these 24 bowed, they cast their crown at the feet of the one sitting on the throne. Then you read in the next chapter that a lamb enters into that heavenly scene or situation. He goes right up to the one sitting on the throne, to whom the 24 and a whole lot of others bowed to. He's called worthy is the Lamb. He takes the book out of the man's hand, and the 24 and the others who bowed to that being, that first being, then also bowed to him. The way we have been taught, that happened 2,000 years ago. If the black preacher could just get time, place, and people straight, he'd raise his people from the dead. You think that happened 2,000 years ago. It did not. It happened recently. Elijah Muhammad is not dead. He is the Lamb who ascended. I want you just to listen. Just listen. I'm going to say this quickly but clearly, stating a case. He worked among us for 40 years. You think he died. He did not. The Holy Quran is pointing to him when it says he was made to appear as dead. The Bible doesn't actually teach that Jesus died. It seems like it. Again, we don't have the time to get into it, but we could get into the finite details. I'll leave you a package, or invite me back however you want to do it. I'm willing to go into it as long as you want. It would take a good day to go into this properly, to show you bit by bit by bit, argument piece by piece, and let you cut it up and argue with it or question me if I was the one handling such a meeting. And when we come out tight. We would come out tight. But you'd have to be prepared for a whole day, have the coffee out, the cool drinks out, be sure it's 72 degrees in the house, and we deal with it. But it's worth it. After all, we are a people. Look, none of us in this room was born hardly last century. You didn't bring yourself into slavery. You didn't bring your ancestors into slavery. They were forced over here. We didn't give ourselves Christianity. White folks gave it to us. And we all know, unless you just want to lie to yourself, that we were in bad mental shape when they gave us Christianity. The same man that gave it to us had his foot on our neck. Take this. We had no right to trust him. Nothing he said was trustworthy. And even if you think he was all right, look how they did the Indians. They're just liars. That's the matter of history, facts. The Indians don't trust white folks. We different. We were far more robbed than they were. Something was left with them. Nothing was left with us. So we were raised in whatever way they wanted to raise us. So you niggas is from monkeys? You don't know. You niggas are all from cheetah. We don't know. That's how we used to think. In fact, some of the older brothers and sisters will tell you in the 30s and 20s we thought our name was nigger. The white folks didn't start spelling Negro with a large N until the 30s. We had to go to court. The NAACP went to court to force that. Please. Let's not talk like we don't know experts on this thing. Now look, I'm not arguing with you about the Jesus, but the point is whatever you got, it was given to you. Did you examine what you were given? No. Go ask her. Politely ask your white friend, your 33rd degree Shriner, do you have anything different than what I got? I got the 33 degrees and I'm 30, 32, 34, 35 years old. You got white hair. Why did it take you so long? So do we really have the same thing? You probably wouldn't ask him just like that. He probably wouldn't tell you nothing. Okay. Now, my dear brothers and sisters, the 24 of Revelation, the we in the Holy Quran, the us in your Bible is the same people. The Holy Quran has this statement. It says, I don't have a Quran here, but it's in the other room. It says that this book, the present Holy Quran that any of you can get your hands on, the writer in the book who says he's Allah, says that this book is from a larger book called the mother of the book. And it says that that mother of the book is safely guarded and is with us. Why you got to guard it? If you're God, if the us there is God, and you in heaven, and the devil is not there, who you guarding it from? That same book, Holy Quran, talks about the necessity on the part of this us or we to keep the Satans away from their private discussions. I'm paraphrasing. It says they punish them or they set a flame after them. Why you got to do that? Now look, your Old Testament, all the prophets to a greater or lesser degree say this, that in the last days God's wisdom, the essential features of it, will be revealed. It is a secret. Look, You can't see this book here called Above Top Secret. I had it under this. I wasn't deliberately hiding it from you. I was not concealing it. It was just under here because it was more convenient for me to put it under here. If I was deliberately putting it under here, it's concealed. It's deliberate. If I'm just putting it over here because it's convenient, like this glass of water, it's just being hidden from your eye. The Bible, yes, sir, Jesus speaks about his joy over God revealing his secret to him and those with him, and hiding it from, keeping it from the wise and prudent. Paul uses the same language, and they even, in addition to the word secret, the word mystery is used. In both cases, it's information that God kept back. Now listen, let's get into this thing. If God is going to produce at the end of the world a process, not all at once, that leads to a brand new universe, and you see white people such as Stephen Hawking and others, wise white physicists, chasing after the ultimate explanation of everything. What are they trying to do? To get your hands or your mind on the ultimate explanation makes you God. The white man is after what? Ruling the universe. They say if we can just get the tail of the comet, they put stuff in the paper all the time. They feel they're just a minute away from getting their hands on that by which everything is explained and that by which everything is governed. Now, the Jesus figure, on the other hand, when he comes with the explanation of all things according to your book. And the Holy Quran is in the other room. It says this, that this book is a clear explanation of everything. Well, Muhammad, those brothers and sisters who are Muslims overseas, they don't have the clear explanation of everything. They're fighting for their lives over there. And they admit that their understanding or their theology is worn out. We've talked to them. Oh, it's so phony when the white man says, the black Muslims or those with Farrakhan, they're not accepted by the office. They put that over on you if you're dumb. Just because you wasn't there, you haven't seen us deal. They don't treat us like that. That never happens in interpersonal discussion unless we got one of our brothers or sisters that you are very ignorant of what you got. But they don't do that with us. That just doesn't happen. Minister Farrakhan was over there January 90 with their top scholars. And they bowed. I witnessed it. I wasn't by myself. And when the scholars came over to visit the Elijah Muhammad, they came to learn. Some of them argued, but right at his dinner table, he dealt with him. And of course, you can't argue that if you don't know nothing about the Holy Quran or Islam in general, or you think it's something crazy or foreign, you're not mentally in a position for us to even discuss it. You got to first learn something about it. But it's not all that hard to see. Now, he'll be wrapping this up by pointing this out. And this that we're talking on is what's way underneath this is why the Jews are so upset. You got the wrong idea about what's upsetting the Jews. The Jews are the top folks on this planet. The Jews create the money. The word rich doesn't even approach what they are, the top ones. It ain't even a matter. It's a matter of supreme power. White folks got it for their world is concerned. And what they're afraid of, that everything that they have done to catch this Farrakhan fella, he outfoxes them. We're gonna put Farrakhan in jail if you bring that money in here. Look, we just came back from Mexico. 4 of us, including the minister. We walked over to the regular line to have our bags checked, passport stamped. The man was waiting on us. We didn't know it was going to happen. Come this way. We didn't know what that meant. I had visions of strip search and everything else. Got in this other line. There was no line at all. Went right on through. Bang, bang, bang. Never opened no bag. You could have had a bunch of money in there. Could have had whatever. It's a sign. They don't want to fool with him. Do you know this government to this day, don't know how Minister Farrakhan got back in the country in 1986? They don't know how he did it. And I'm among maybe 2 or 3 people that was blessed. The minister showed it to me. Somebody showed us this document, the plans that they had to jack him up, to start a fight at whatever port of entry he came in, and see to it he was killed. You know, there got to be some power with the minister that's not satanic, really. Come and stop and think for a minute. If Satan cast out Satan, how can his kingdom stand? If the minister is being moved by a satanic power, and you know America is being moved by a satanic power, if Satan's fighting Satan, then this country is going to hell, and you in it. Well, how you gonna get out of this situation? Please, need to stop and look a little bit beyond our nose. Marlon Brando said Hollywood is controlled by Jews, and the Jews made him cry uncle. It didn't happen when Minister Farrakhan did it. You all looked at Emerge magazine where this big rabbi, did you see the Emerge magazine?
Yes, sir.
You saw where the rabbi is saying, we got to talk to this man Farrakhan? If we don't talk to him, we in trouble. If we talk to him, we in trouble. I mean, that's interesting. One black man's making all these Jews bow. There got to be something to the minister other than this silly talk that some of y'all are making about the man. How about examining his claims? How about examining when he says that I was raised, that's what he says, and taught by a man who met God? I mean, why don't you just examine it? He don't talk like a crazy man, does it? I mean, you have heads of states treating him as a head of state. I mean, it's about time that the black community really examine it. That's why I'm glad the 700 Club did what they did. Because now it brings out the nitty-gritty of all, the mother of all issues. It brings it on out. It brings it out. My dear beloved brothers and sisters, Jesus 2,000 years ago was no more born through a virgin than you was. You only have one time to be a virgin, sister. Same thing with you, brother. Then that's over with. Okay? Now, it's so, people write books on this stuff, absolutely blasting at the kingdom come, showing it comes from paganism. White people wanted their religion accepted, so they used forms and adapted what they said they believed in to fit what the pagans they were trying to get over. What you had is a sign, even in the Muslim world. Muhammad himself said, 3 generations after me won't be of me. None of these religions have enough juice today to get us out the mess we in. None of them. They all were limited. Do you know why? Here's a simple way of saying it. Jesus was taken by the mountain top somewhere, led up in the mountain in the spirit, and he was talked to by Satan. Isn't that what they say? Whether it happened or not, I don't know. But here's the point. If you will bow down and worship me, the devil said, I'll give you all these cities. I'm running the world. Now, the question, my dear brothers and sisters, who really has been running this world? I don't care whether you want to say a spook devil or whatever. Who's been running the world? Any kind of devil you want to make him. Who runs the world? White folks. They run this wicked world. Now, if you want to say a spook devil is controlling them and they're puppets, fine, you say what you want to say. But the point is, the world lies in wickedness. The Bible says the whole world lies in wickedness. That was said by John 2,000 years ago. Well, the world is more wicked today than it was then. And that's the point I'm trying to make, my dear brothers and sisters. No way in hell the world could have been at its end 2,000 years ago. So you have in your Gospels and you have in the writings, the rest of the writings, Paul's writings and the others, the words that show that they were absolutely convinced that those days were the last days. It's right there in Romans. It's right there in Corinthians. It's right there in John. It's right there in Peter. Galatians says, in the fullness of time, God sent forth his son born of a woman. You think that was 2,000 years ago. That was not what's called the fullness of time. Look the word up. Look up the idiomatic expression, fullness of time. This is it. Here's a time right now when wicked men have their fingers on buttons and can blow up everybody. Didn't you read in Romans that if God don't cut short the time, no flesh would be saved? Which time does that fit more, now or back then? Then it was what? Did they have bow and arrows back then? They had spears and stuff, you know? How many people can you kill like that? Now you got these crazies to just press buttons and everybody's gone. This is it right now. Now, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, this one who came, Master Farad Muhammad, who you need to get to know more about, came here. He was expecting him. They met in 1930. And all that he taught us, and that Minister Farrakhan bears witness to, came from that one who visited. My dear brothers and sisters, those of you who have studied some theology, you know what I mean when if I talk about the law of the double and the double and the triple reference. There are some prophecies that are fulfilled once. There are other prophecies, depending upon the magnitude, that are fulfilled twice or in stages, where more than one person or sets of people fulfill it. There's some 3, and there's even a few that's 4 times. That's when it stops. That's a fact. That's a fact. Now look, you read where Moses led the children out of Israel?
Yes, sir.
You read that?
Yes, sir.
You believe that happened, you say? Go down, Moses. Tell old Pharaoh, let my people go, and we moan and groan and holler and we happy over that. White folks did not want the slaves to read that kind of stuff in slavery time. We might get what they call the wrong ideas. Some brothers might try to be a Moses for a minute, and some brothers did. Did the best they could. And Nat Turner was a brother who was moved by the book. He didn't get all the way over, but he sure had an idea that a lot of us find very interesting today. Now look. Did you read about the pillar of cloud by day? Pillar of fire by night? What was that? Your Bible tells you if you will just look at the words without any blinders on, that God was in that thing. And from within that, whatever it was, he looked down on the armies of Egypt and discomfited them, or some translations say he destroyed Pharaoh's army. Most of the time we're looking at the flood. But where did the action come from? It came from this God. Now, at this point, I want you to see this video, and then I'm going to wrap up these words and then leave. And then you can do whatever you got to do afterwards. Would you turn this on? This is the book written by a white man. Can you see the title? Yes, sir. What does it say? Okay, now you're looking at some above top secret stuff. Did you know when the truth, hold it, when the truth is done, you know what's above top secret in America? Your identity. Your identity is above top secret. Your identity, brothers and sisters, is on the same level as the real truth of what you're about to see. Did you hear what I just said? I'll say it again. Your ID, not the stuff you got in your wallet. That ain't it. You probably got white man's last name. Even though you got the Word of God and you preaching, you still got the white man's last name. Sisters, your ID, brothers, your ID, all the black folks you ever going to run into in this country, your ID is above top secret. The UFOs are above top secret. Elijah Muhammad above top secret, and the power behind Farrakhan above top secret. And the white man, some of them trying to tell it, but they can't tell it too straight because they fear panic. That's what that movie is about. Or they probably going to win in the end. White folks going to win in the end. I know, we know. They always, got to make it, they get real upset and then they breathe easy at the end. Somebody can make some money now. But they trying to tell something, man. Now come on with the movie, with the sightings right now. Watch this. Now this came on 2 Saturdays ago. You should stop watching all the boogie stuff and whatever and watch what's really happening. Watch this, brother.
No sea, but watch your head. Heavy nap, crawl, climb, and swim your way through the...
Well, my dear brothers and sisters, no more mystery. And let me just sum it up. And then you go home and you think about this. Whether you think it's a big lie, because if it's not a lie, then you are absolutely affected by it, and you're not going to be able to get around this. By reason of the fact that we're alive and living in this country, regardless to what city we're in a situation cannot. None of us get out of it. You're not going to get around this by just closing your eyes and playing the part of an ostrich. Just in the process of explaining that, here's what it is. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that within less than a year of his being contacted by his teacher, he pointed up in the sky. He wrote about it. It's in this book, Message to the Black Man, and it's in other writings, that this plane was seen. It looked like a city in the sky. It was reported in the white press. It's huge. There is a plane. It's a half mile by half mile. It's thick this way, but if you look down or from the bottom, it's round. It's not a saucer. It's a huge, humanly built plane. It was built at the cost of $150 million in gold. It was put up by certain secret people in Mecca. Last century, the plans were taken from there elsewhere, and it was built secretly on an island, Nippon or Japan. The bulk of the people, of course, knew nothing about it. The parts were made here and there and there and there very secretly. It was assembled, and it launched, and it never has come down. The training of those who are on that, men with families, original people, all that was done in big secret. Now, that's done. It's up there. It has 1,500 bombing planes on it. Maybe that's what you were looking at. Don't, please. It's an insult to say the white folks didn't study this. Please. It is not from another planet. Russia thought America had done it at first. America thought Russia, and then they found out that neither one of them did it. Some whites have already begun to publish papers on it. The largest white, or the largest organization, to my knowledge, is called MUFON, Mutual UFO Network. I've interviewed last year the head of it in Seguin, Texas. I have a book, if it please Allah, that will come out soon called Where is the Honorable Elijah Muhammad? Subtitle, Is he dead or physically alive? And in that book, we deal with this. White people know this. Sure, if you want to go and buy a book, you should go and buy something like this. It's too big. It's not a story. It's a happening. It's an event. It's either there or it's not. Pardon me. It's either real or it's not. And above top secret just means that white folks don't want you to know about it. President Jimmy Carter tried to find out. They shot him down. He said, when I get in office, I'm going to tell it. He got in office. He told nothing. There are some white people who you don't elect. They just run what they run. And the other little people who in and out of office, they're the front people. Jimmy Carter saw it. He had people, there were people with him. Some of you all may have seen it, some of these planes. But you're going to see them very soon. There'll be no doubt about it. Just imagine downtown Memphis with this half mile by a half mile plane on, say, Tuesday afternoon. What time is lunch hour? 12 o'clock? At about 10 past noon on a sunny day. What effect would that have on the population? Or over Chicago or Los Angeles or New York City or Philadelphia or Washington, D.C. Brothers and sisters, you should know all about this. The people up there are your friends. You read it. You said when Jesus comes back, and Reverend Williams says he expects him to return. He said he's coming with angels. And they will be clouds. They're coming on clouds. What kind of clouds? It's not clouds. It's a symbol for planes. Little round planes with people in it. These planes, each of them have 3 bombs apiece, weighing 2,000 pounds apiece, that are fixed up to blow a hole in the earth 50 square miles. But they have a timing device so that when they hit, they go under these particular bombs, and then they blow up the dirt a mile high. That's what's hanging over America's head right now. Big Jews know this. Certain big white folks know this. When they arrested the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in 1942, they took his brief bag. He deliberately had it so that they would be able to get it. He left certain things on the blackboard about the plane, knowing when they were going to arrest him. And they did. And they questioned him 13 hours. And they held on to his written material for 7 months. And among the many, many, many things that he had in his notes was the future of China at a time when Mao was on the long march, looked like going to his defeat. Elijah Muhammad saw tomorrow, wrote about it, talked to us about it. The reason all the garbage and noise is being splashed around his name and that of Minister Farrakhan is because there's some heavy-duty reality folks don't want you to deal with. But I'm putting it here bluntly. That plane is either there or it's not. If it ain't there, we out of here. Because we Muslims, we ain't got no power. We ain't got no more power than you have against white folks. You can sit there and not like them all you want to. But you can not like a man who got a 45 beside your head saying, give me your money. The intelligent thing to do is give up your money. Say, look, man, I'd appreciate you leave my life. Take the money. You follow what I'm saying? And my point is, if it wasn't for some steel up over white folks' head, they'd be on our case already, putting us in the ground in a more open manner than the way that they're doing it, which is very subtle. And the way that they're doing it is in a way that carries some of their own kind with them. They feel they outnumber us, so and they do, so take off niggas, take off some of our own kind. There are people that think like that. A lot of us can't see that. You know, the white people, as Elijah Muhammad said once, they are dealing with us as if we once had them in bondage. They turn the tables and now they're getting even. I mean, just look at this perpetual hatred. New Yorker will have a magazine article out tomorrow where a brother named Gates. I was there 2 weeks ago when Louis Gates, a professor out of Harvard, interviewed Minister Farrakhan. I don't know how the article is going to look, but I saw it mentioned on C-SPAN earlier today on the something journal, Sunday Journal I think it's called. I'm interested to see how it comes out. But if the brother did an inaccurate story, Allah willing, we're going to take the interview and put it out before our people anyway. And the whole of the Mike Wallace interview is going to come out. The whole thing. And the whole of the Barbara Walter interview that was all mangled is going to come out. We're going to put it out in book form so that people can see. We're right at the end of this. End of what? We're at the end, just about at the end of the time period Minister Farrakhan is to preach among us. That's why I'm talking as bluntly as I can. We all but out of the time that he was given to teach him. When that man is gone, it's going to be lights out in this country. I'll make that very clear. He is not Elijah Muhammad. He's not his teacher. But he is being used and guided by his teacher to keep a light going in this world, because we as a people blew it with Elijah Muhammad. And we were given a second chance divinely through our brother, who is closer to our situation. You follow me? It's a little bit easier to see the con, so to speak. He'll go around you in maybe sneakers and a sweatshirt, a sweatsuit rather. You follow me? Wearing out down like Muhammad wouldn't, because how we see divine men as something way out. We have such a silly view of what divinity is because we're ignorant of our own divinity. Brothers and sisters, you don't have a birth record. You not only are the first people in existence, blacks are first, but original also means that which contains its own source. We have been here for untold trillions and trillions and trillions of years. Each one of us as individuals, no. There was a brother named Methuselah who lived almost 1,000 years, but he's dead. That's us. White folks just got here a little bit over 6,000 years ago. A lot of time passed, and we over time gradually became dissatisfied with our own self. And we began to degenerate approximately 50,000 years ago. And we gave rise to this, that, and the other, and eventually our own dissatisfaction reached 30%. And as Elijah Muhammad said, whenever there is a longing on the part of people for a change, some black sister will give birth. Or in other societies, some woman will give birth to some child, male or female, depending, that will bring about the change that's in the people's hearts. That's why when you reject Elijah Muhammad and reject Louis Farrakhan, you're rejecting what you yourself helped to produce, or what your ancestors produced. And the reason why white folks can't understand the minister's deep connection with his people is because we help to produce it. He's speaking for us what's in us. So maybe this brother and I may not be able to articulate it as well as the other brother, but he was born to speak what we need to have spoken for us. So yes, all praise be to Allah. I want to get this very clear. I'm going a little bit past the time I wanted to go, but I want to make these points so clear. I'm not trying to preach. I'm just trying to talk to you the way we would talk over coffee at the Burger King or McDonald's somewhere. Just be sure I have honey in my coffee. I don't like white sugar. Now, look. Among us for untold trillions of years, and especially prior to 6,000 years ago. Well, let me put it more accurately. 66 trillion years. Yes, sir. Come on. It has been that long since the general public has known the true reality of God. We did something to ourselves way back yonder. And the wisest among us, then as a consequence of what we did, collectively speaking, hid the reality of God. Haven't you ever, hey, you got children? What happens when your children disrespect you in the house? You the father, you the mother, and they disrespect you. You jam them up, don't you? If you got any sense, you do. You spare the rod, you spoil the child, turn out really rotten. You demand respect in your house. And you demand that if you learn it in a certain field, it is natural that the rest of us look up to you. If you know something about physics or whatever the subject may be, the rest of us, it's natural. We will look to you. Or you. Let's say there's a sister here who is the best seamstress we got. Well, we're going to bring her our work if we don't want to do that. And if one of us is a seamstress, we will defer to her on some difficult point that we don't know how to solve. Or some sister, that's natural among people, unless you're just jealous and envious. Now, that's when the lights went out on the reality of God, that long. That's related to the fact that your so-called Protestant Bible has 66 books in it. And it's not until the last book that Jesus is revealed. It's called the revelation of Jesus, right? Sometimes it's like the revelation of Jesus by his angels to John, or it is in terms of information, but it's also the revealing of the Jesus figure. Let's not play with this thing now. We're talking about God. See, if you say he came in the flesh, we don't argue that. We're just saying it was more recent than you think. And he wasn't what you thought he was. He wasn't a white man. Now, so God has been a secret from the general public, held just by a handful of black men. None of these men live forever. In other words, the ruling power of the universe is you. But among you, top men, not just anybody. 12 men specifically, they're called 12 major scientists. The other 12 are called minor scientists. They make up this 24, and that's the we and the us of your Bible and Quran. Shrouded in mystery. You just don't know who it is. And they will never to ever tell that. That's this big secret your Old Testament prophets say will come in the last day. And it comes at the same time the prophets say the new heavens and the new earth is to be produced. Because then you're going to have the recreation of the heavens and the earth, and to know that you God. That was in the beginning. Now, did you read in your Bible where it says that the wise one saw Satan? He's a liar from the beginning. Lucifer fell from the beginning. It's two different beginnings. Not the same beginning now. Brothers and sisters, you can argue it, but that's who you are. You're the God people. But right now we're on the bottom of the barrel. Well then, how do we juxtapose, how do we figure out, how do we understand that we are descendants of people that rule creation? How do we get into this bang? In our dissatisfaction, we produced a black man. He was no mad scientist. That's a lie. A wise, brilliant scientist. He wasn't trying to get revenge on God. He was a black man who discovered in us there were two people. Something had been troubling us over the eons of time. that was in us. And in simple, brief language, this brother looked into us, into the life germ of the black man and the woman, and saw the dormant person there. And through scientific birth control law, there were other details. You can get Message to the Black Man and read the details on page 100. This man got some followers, and they were exiled. And there on the Isle of Pilon is where this man made what you today call devil or the Caucasian. Caucasian means weak boned, stale-faced, wicked by nature. Devil has a meaning also, and Satan has a meaning. Now listen, you and I can be devils, but not the devil by nature. We act like devils, don't we? We cut up, and some of us outdo white folks. I mean, some of us have taught white folks stuff they didn't know. Said, damn, these niggas got, you know, that's a fact. That's a fact. That's in the Bible too, that we would cut up like that. But by nature, that's not you. And by nature, the white man can do good, act good, and many of them live a cleaner life than a lot of us. But they teach in Christianity, which is suited to their nature, born in sin and shaped in iniquity. That's them in the biological sense. That's you and I by circumstance. Now, so we produced this man, and he made his conversion. Now, if you take this book of Revelation, I first saw this when I was in the penitentiary. I have a lot of time to read in the penitentiary. I went there for not fighting for the government, the white government. I don't think I should do that. You do what you please, young brother. I'm not going to do that. If they say right now they're still going to take all brothers, put you in the army, put me back into the penitentiary. That's where I'll go right on back tomorrow. I will not fight for these people. I'll fight them, but I will not fight for them. You do it. That's not big talk. No. Let me tell you something. That's the only sane way to look at this thing. It's the only sane way to look at this. You got some nerve calling the minister a traitor. God. Would they like to have the name slave master? They don't want black men and women to think independently. Now look, dear brothers and sisters, if you look in the book of Revelation, some of the scholars argue over whether or not the writer was originally one of the disciples of John. Now you have read, or you have heard, that John was one of his disciples. So he lived, of the 12 disciples, he lived the longest. He didn't die until around the end of the century or the beginning of the next century. They say while on the Isle of Pilon, Jesus, who was in heaven, revealed to him what's called the book of Revelations in visions. Right? Now, chapter 12 talks about a woman clothed with the sun, moon at her feet. And she's pregnant with a child who, when this child comes forth, will rule the nations with a rod of iron. Now, the Catholics, up until recently, were teaching that the woman is Mary and the baby is Jesus. Now, look, does that make sense? I want you to see the picture so we can get to the truth of it. John on an island, Jesus in heaven reveals to John vision about the end. Woman, child, going to rule forever. Is Jesus talking to John about his own rebirth? Come on, please. Use your good sense. If there's any truth to this at all, he's talking to John about another man coming to do what wasn't done back here. It's a perverted way of putting it, but a lot of the truth in the Bible is put in a messed up fashion, such as Jonah in the whale. Now, you know it didn't happen like that. You don't go in nobody's... But if you look at the text, he says at one point, out of the belly of hell cried I. It's symbolic talk. You had a whale of a time last night, a hell of a time last night. You got drunk. Isn't that what you said? Please, let's get the language straight. So, this is the same. This child here is the Messiah. Now, this is, I'm going to have to stop this in a moment because there's not enough time to go into it properly, and rather than to try to condense it and say something, just because I know it, that you, 1 or 2 of you, or 10 of you, or 50 of you don't know, I don't want you to walk out of here with no misunderstanding, so some things I'm going to hold back. hoping you'll come back where there's more time for Minister Anthony and others to deal with it. But this is to be understood on more than one level. It refers to the woman who gave birth to Master Farad Muhammad in Mecca in 1877. It also refers to him in a certain sense, giving birth spiritually to Elijah Muhammad. It also refers to Elijah Muhammad giving birth to an entire nation. Oh yeah, there's other references, but that's what it's talking about. You're going to rule forever. I know you don't, why some of you say, I want to rule. That's okay about what you want to do. Some of our people say, well, I don't want too much money. I don't want a big house. Some talk like that. Or you just talking like that. You see this picture? It's your book. Now, the scholars who look deeper into language than the average one of us learn that it's in Greek, but the Greek was not the native language of the writer. The native language of the writer was some ancient form of Arabic. It's Yaqub on the Isle of Pilan or Patmos. Before he died, he lived to be about 150. And before he died, he foresaw the end of his own people that he was making. And he left knowledge in books. And white people have ruled the world. Yes, they blew most of them 2,000 years in the caves. They spent 2,000 years. Not all, but the vast majority. They came, after they were made, they came among us. They messed up. We ran them out. We hit a few. That's why the brothers got light. Egypt used to be very dark. Middle East, very dark. We held back some and they mixed with us, and now they got us light skinned. Especially among the ruling class. But that's where the brown and the red and the yellow people came from. The brown and yellow and the red are a production of a mixture of brown and yellow, and that's how they got started. Prior to 6,000 years ago, these people didn't exist. It was either, let me see, I got one brother in glasses, and you know, most all of us in this room, if you was to go where I went with the minister a couple of years ago to the Sudan, and you met some of them brothers and sisters over there, the doc, just about except one brother, he'd make it, but the rest of us would feel kind of funny. I mean, you see, I mean, look, I gotta send you some pictures. We saw some brothers and sisters were so black, I found myself my eyes got big. I mean, just pretty black. I mean, I can see him in my head right now. But that's a fact. And you can, no brother, my brother over here, no, I don't want to make you embarrassed, but say you have brother with the glasses right there. See how beautiful black, but see how black and pretty he is? Now that brother, let me say this to you. But brother, if he was over there, you'd feel light-skinned, man. I saw some folks so black, I mean, I couldn't believe it. Not knocking white folk, but have you seen some white folks look so white they look unreal? Well, I saw some black over there, they were so black, like they're blue black. And I mean, it's like, whoa, this is not real, but that's how we used to be. And a shade lighter. And Yaqub did what he did to produce great wisdom in what that man did. Because he showed us what was in us and brought it all the way out. And now, for the first time since the black man was here, we don't know how far back that goes, into the untold trillions of years, we now know something that was in us that gave us trouble. The Bible tells you there's a certain point in time when the people won't ever do sin again. Well, the basis for sin, we're in the time period now when it will be removed. That's why you couldn't be born at a better time in history. You're born right now at the end of not just the world of the wicked, the world of white folks, the end of America's power over us, but even the end of our own way prior to this. They gave rise to the madness in the first place. That thing in the life germ of the black man and woman that gave us trouble now has been brought all the way out. You know how they say confession is good for the soul? You tell the thing, you get it out, you look at it, and then it's gone. That's an oversimplification of what we are going through right now. Now, we were allowed, dear brothers and sisters, to go down into slavery. If you notice your book, Genesis 15, when Abraham wanted to understand deeper what God meant about this 400 years, he wanted a deeper understanding, and God put him to sleep. And the nature of the sleep that he was in was like this. The word horror. Some rough words are used to describe his state of mind. Abraham was transported in his spirit 5,000 years down to our time and made to experience spiritually the agony you and I went through. When I was in Ghana with the minister, again over there a couple of years ago, I went into what they call the slave pens. Now, I don't know what that was about. I read books, but that's not it. I tried to imagine. I stood in one of them by myself, and I just tried to imagine a room, a fourth the size of this room, with brothers packed and not able to sit down. Just standing there, naked, nearly naked, for weeks. I mean, I tried to imagine what I had read about. I tried to imagine what the sisters went through. We can't hardly ever do that. We're beyond that. But you and I are the beneficiaries of what our ancestors went through. And you don't have no time today to play over truth. You need to learn whether this is the truth or not. And if it is, my dear brothers and sisters, I don't care what you believe in right now, this is your birthright. I would tell Reverend Williams that if I could see him, I'm not worrying about the things you put out, because I know all this stuff is going to lose. If it's a false today, it's going down the tube. The important thing is, has God come to black people in America? Your book tells you after the 400 years, God says, I myself will come and judge. And what you have there in your Bible that you say the Jews went through is a prophetic picture of what we're going through right now. Moses was anointed by God. The word anoint means Messiah, and it says that Moses himself anointed Aaron. Louis Farrakhan is an anointed man. Damn it, that's obvious. The spirit that's in that man is either of God to the max or the devil to the max. Well, what kind of people does he produce? If you're around him, he makes you better. He's forever, 24 hours a day, like a driven man, driven to help lift black people. He's a man, a specially born man from among us. And so was his teacher before him. But what you know, sooner or later, you're going to find out who you are. Each one of you is a hand-picked black man or woman by God. Whether you accept or reject them, that's another thing. But each one of you is selected by God himself to be one of the lively stones Peter talks about. A foundation stone of a kingdom that will have no end. Your job is eventually to go out under proper guidance and straighten out the nations of the earth. That's your job, brothers and sisters. That's your baby's job and your baby's babies to come. Don't be stupid and blow the time behind some superficial something or other. I'm not offended by what my brother wrote. I just say he don't know any better. The brother who did the 700 Club thing, I'm writing in the paper. I'm going to deal with that from my limited perspective. I do what I can to help the situation. I'm writing about it in the paper. I intend to write a piece, 30, 40, 50 pages, responding to that tape. Give it out. It may not reach no million people, but I'm going to do what I can. We're at the end of this world. Now, those planes, that plane is the firepower. I'll put it to your, I'm just going to drop it like it is. If the minister is, say, taken by, if he's arrested, managed, mangled, or messed over by white people, if they kill him, and I don't believe that's going to happen. But they could arrest him. They want him in their hands so bad. We know the actual words of certain senators and congressmen. We know that the persecution is about to come down heavier than ever. We know what's coming. There ain't hardly nothing they got left to do. We are the persecuted ones, are the ones who the scripture says they will mistreat you and think they're doing God's service. People who misunderstand will do that. Okay? But you also have a situation where there are those who know what they're doing. But they just decided to hell with it. Take these niggas out, even though we're going to. Don't be so ignorant as to think the white man don't know. If there's a plane that big in the sky, been up there since 1930, don't you think by now white folks know? They got Hubble and whatnot. They can see pretty far, can't they? They can tell you the makeup of the stars, can't they? You think they don't know if there's a plane up there or not? Please. That's part of what they asked Elijah Muhammad about during those 13 hours. That plane is up there. Now, after the minister is taken away, we believe he'll be reunited with his teacher, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We were warned about food, warned about water, warned to stack up some food. I'm telling you, those of you who are here for your first time, we were warned about things to do to get through the fall of this country. For the most part, we're stubborn, dry bones. Just like the book says. Dry bones. What got the bones together? Finally, it was the winds of war. You see what's going on over there in Israel right now? Hey, that thing's about to blow up. Suppose Mandela dies. There are white folks there want to take back over South Africa. The white people got plans right now to retake Africa. You think these cats not serious? And they want to see you evaporate. They want to see those so-called middle-class Negro, black. They don't care what we call it. They want us dead. All white folks? No, not every one of them. Enough of them, a whole bunch of them. Now look, listen now. At the end of this, if he's gone next year, you can look for hardest. And then she'll lose her power. She'll lose her power. How's she going to lose her power? For one thing, they're going to fight each other. Revolution's coming. When that comes, then you got war. And if God don't cut those days short, no flesh will be saved. There'll be a day you won't be able to come to a mosque because we'll be in our homes. The Bible in the Holy Quran says you have to go in your home now. Put the blood over the doorpost because death is coming in. You hear what I'm saying? You're going to be, stay alive, just don't die, go slip on a banana peel. You'll see. And when the smoke clears, what happens? For the first time in 4 centuries, we'll be able to breathe a fresh, free breath of air. This, it's right around the corner. As we approach the year 2000, there's going to be more and more excitement in the land. And at the end of that period, the book says that Jesus then returns with angels. It's going to be a rough scene. You had an Exodus in your Bible. One day there'll have to be an Exodus from here. One day. Take a lot of time to move all these millions of people, so don't worry about getting out too quick. You want to enjoy some of this was here for a while, because this is the richest place on the planet. Yeah. There's more that could be said, but no point in exciting white folks too much. And some of you wouldn't believe it no way. The wealth that you're about to come into, a lot of y'all don't believe it. You don't believe it. You don't believe it. You've been thinking I've been poor all my life. Can't even imagine how it's going to happen. Little old jive job I got. You're going to lose your job because the boss going to lose his business. And now look, the question I'm asking, brothers and sisters, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You should put your nickels and dimes together with the minister and buy some farmland. You can't eat from concrete. You got to have some dirt. Huh? You better have you some dirt. You're going to see real clear that Jesus is Elijah Muhammad. Master Farad Muhammad fulfilled a portion of it. Minister Farrakhan is fulfilling a portion of it in the sense that Paul and Aaron, how they related to Moses and Jesus. You too. The baby nation that Revelation 12 is talking about, that's yourself. All you all is a bunch of little Jesuses. If somebody came to me and asked me, am I a Jesus? And are you a Jesus? Is Minister Farrakhan a Jesus? I say, we're all that. You ask me, is the minister Jesus? I say, yes, aren't you? What's your problem? Now, there's more to be said about that, but if you come, let's come and discuss it. Go back and tell the pastor, Minister Farrakhan does not want him to close the church. We don't want his followers. Just learn deeper what your book teaches. Your Bible has been a sealed book. Your book tells you that in Daniel. It's sealed until the time of the end. This is the time of the end. It tells you in Isaiah 29, in that day shall the deaf hear the words of the book, and come to sight. It tells you that. I got some of that written in the current article, my article in the paper. Go read it for yourself. We are the blind, the deaf, and the dumb. The people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. That's yourself. You going to deny it? You think that you spent 400 years in a land not your own, going through what you went through, and that's not in the Bible? If you say your Bible contains prophecies right up through to and to the end of the world, you think the prophets overlook what we went through and are coming out of? Please. If your theology cannot explain us, then your theology is inadequate. All you need to do is go deeper. Remember, again, I repeat it, the truth belongs to the pastor. He's the natural leader of our people. And when that brother gets it, in that tape they said, they showed a message to the black man, page 16, about the pastor being the greatest hindrance to the truth. What the brother didn't know, and I got to write him a letter, that was written in 1956. In 1957, the Elijah Muhammad came up with another article in the Pittsburgh Courier. Will the black preacher accept Islam? The answer is yes. The black preacher stands today like Pharaoh's magician stood. Moses, Aaron, Elijah Muhammad, Louis Farrakhan, Pharaoh's magicians, preachers, Pharaoh the president. That's what you, rod, each one throw down. You throwing down now, this is throw down year. 1996, both sides throw down. And when the smoke clears, the scriptures both say the magicians stopped being magicians. They became preachers of the word of God. The brother pastors are going to be some of the most greatest preachers you can ever imagine. Those brothers are going to stop eating pig. They're going to slim down. And they're going to preach like you've never heard them preach before. Go and tell them this brother said so. I'm only bearing witness to the truth that's in your book. And it says that the rod of Moses and Aaron ate up their lies. So let's be honest about it, brother. If you got a piece of paper from the white folks saying you can preach, just remember, no prophet of God, no man of God ever had to get permission from the enemy to preach the truth. You're by nature of the truth. Just study the truth, learn the truth, and go telling it. The brothers who are outside in the paper, they're ministers of the word. They're ministers in that sense of the word. Minister only means you serving your folks with the truth. That's all it means. So Brando backed down. Minister Farrakhan did not. He backed down because they made him cry uncle. They screamed and hollered. They said how they're going to make his life miserable. They can't do that to us. They can't do that to us. And they better not try no physical violence. Those people will crush them. Our spirit is, you touch Minister Farrakhan, we'll touch you. Now we know that there's a certain point coming where they may lay hands on him, and he's already given instructions under certain circumstances what to do. He has to go through this. But as he goes through it, you're benefited by it. Because after this rough period is over, those of you who know the scriptures call the time of Jacob's trouble. It's a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And those of you who are married or contemplating marriage, just remember you're getting married in a very rough time. You brothers contemplating marriage, sisters contemplating marriage, your partner, your prospective mate doesn't come with a book around their neck saying manual on how to deal with me. You follow me? Go out and get you something and read. Read about it. It's hard to keep relationships together today because of the stress and the pressure of the time. But just understand you're living at the end of the world you're in. And it ain't just the breaking up of a house or two. A whole world of thought is being destroyed. You hear me? A whole world is going out. And a new world is being birthed through you. And part of the problems we have internally is not understanding that there's a world in each of us that's going out. And another world is being birthed in each brother and sister that you see. I don't care who you are. You want to argue that? I'm ready and able. A world is leaving you, and another world is coming in. The world of Satan is leaving you, and the world that you used to be running, and then some, is being reborn through you. And so the book talks often about this restoration. I had several things I wanted to say, but I didn't have no time on when to cover some of this. I covered just a fraction of what's in my mind and heart to say to you. I hope that you all will get together in addition to your Sunday meetings. You know, you got to have other sessions, Friday night sessions with Minister Farrakhan study guides. All you brothers and sisters, you show up here on a Friday night. The Friday night study sessions with the study guides is meant to help us get our inside clear. It helps us get our conscience clear. That's what we need. Some of you sisters were victims of rape or incest. Sisters, you can't wallow in that forever. You got to make up your mind, I'm cutting the past. I can't change yesterday, but I can change my attitude toward yesterday. As Elijah Muhammad said it, the minister said it. Take God to heal a woman who's gone through that kind of madness. But sisters, this word will heal you of it almost overnight. You think I'm lying? No. No. When you realize, sisters, a lot of y'all just don't know who you are. The first act of God after his self-creation was woman, who he brought from himself. There's no such thing as you was up in the tree and you got some apple from a snake and you bit and then you gave it to the man and the Bible say she sinned, Adam didn't sin. That's crap taught by white men in the days of the formation of Christianity in the first few centuries. One of those men was a man named Origen, O-R-I-G-E-N. A man who was so extreme in his thinking, a white man who had a heavy influence on the formation of the New Testament, he castrated himself. Go and study those white men back then. You find they didn't dig women. And that's why part of the whole 6,000-year mess has been the stomping of women. So when the Messiah comes, he frees the woman. So brothers, when you understand the value of this woman, we have learned now. We brothers who are in the Nation of Islam are learning the value of the black woman. We have learned that you do not, I'm just going to say it blunt, I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings, but you're not going to die, sprout wings, and go to heaven. You get married to a black woman and you hug heaven. That's how that happens. That's right. Praise be to Allah. The first life in space was a black man. He needed, after a while, two things. He wanted some consolation. Yes, sir. And he wanted to see a being like himself. So from himself, after study of self, a being by himself with nobody else in space, he produced her. Come on. And that's the only way people have been getting heaven ever since. You can talk about dying and going somewhere. That's nothing but jive. You ain't going nowhere. You're not going nowhere but where the living take you. If we take you, though we love you, and we put you away from us. And we may go to somebody's house after that and sit down and discuss how beautiful you were over tea and coffee, whatever, and cake. But we don't ever expect to see you again, except in our memory or dreams or photos. Really, by nature, we don't want to see you again. Oh yeah, I love my mama. You love yours. Especially mama. Daddy gets some play, but mama got action. But if mama dies, you just buried mama 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and now it's midnight, and you think you hear her voice, and you wake up, you say, you know, I'm just, feeling the pressure or the stress of my mother. But if you go into the kitchen and see mama sitting at the table, reading a book, what will you do? Leave you to fill in the blanks. So my dear brothers and sisters, just think on this now. He said to us, the nation doesn't rise no higher than the woman. If your woman is oppressed and ignorant, you produce children through her who are messed up. When you get married to these women, brother, treat them right. Don't punch them around at all, and especially when they're pregnant. She's making you all over again. What you going to do, beat her up? Look at what you're doing to her head. Her thoughts go to form you all over again messed up. Right? They should produce a baby that'll hate you. Right? So you can't change yesterday. We did all kind of madness yesterday or this morning before we came here. We got to change. Brothers are the natural rulers. The women will submit. They don't want to submit to madness. We obviously have the strongest woman on earth, man. She's here. She came through what you came through with, brother. That's deep, man. Think on what she came through. We went through the worst experience that humans can imagine. We're here. That tells us something about who we are. You want to work on that one? You don't need to sit down and discuss it. How can we even survive? What we do in our life? Yeah, most of us have crazy, but we're here. So I want you to think on these things that we're saying. God has actually come to and visited us. We are the chosen people that the book is talking about, but not chosen to be vain and arrogant and mistreat other people. We were allowed to be reduced all the way to the spiritual and moral equivalent of what was in the beginning when there was nothing and darkness and it was cold. You hear what I just said? That's why we were allowed by God to go all the way down to zero. And this zero now is that out of which God now builds the new heavens and the new earth. And this wisdom of which this is only scratching the surface of it. This is the wisdom that generates in men and women, our people, who have a capacity to receive it more than others because of what we went through. A person or people who haven't suffered don't see quite as deep as people who have suffered and survived. And we have suffered like nobody else has. And we come out of it more willing to forgive with a bigger heart, sometime in a crazy fashion, more than anybody else. And the Jews, they're very narrow, most of them. They remember what you did 89 years ago. Don't care how much you done, like Jesse said, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. No, Jesse, forever. You said, Jaime, you must go down on your knees and stay there forever. We don't think like that. We mess up, we atone. Straighten it up, throw it out. It's gone. In this country, you do wrong, you come out the penitentiary, John Jones, former bank robber, as if that's part of your name. And no forgiveness in this so-called Christian society. Cold. So, my dear brothers and sisters, the truth has come. It's up to you to accept it now or accept it tomorrow, because you're going to accept it. How you know? Well, when white folks ain't got nothing to give you. You got Safeway here? What's your store called here where you eat? Kroger's? When Kroger's is shut down. Because God may have to just do that. Shut down Kroger's. You know, no light, no gas. Then you say, I wonder where them Muslims is. Yep. The Almighty will have to actually spank us. As a people, we're going to have to get a whooping. And the whooping is coming. That's not what God wants for us. The book says he's not willing that one of us perish. But that's what we are bringing on ourselves. So some of us will go down the tube, but the majority of us will survive. And on the other side of this, you will be formed into a nation, but you'll be ready then. You will be. You'll be ready to deal. And you'll say, well, I wish I had done this earlier, but hard head make us soft. But by then, you know, isn't it something how we, more often than not, we have to get beat up before we can see better? Most of us, all of us like that. Sometimes we learn the best lessons that way. Mama tells us the stove is hot. Ah! Now we got the experience. Huh? So I'm going to leave you with this thought before I read you something from this piece of paper. The Holy Quran talks about 3 degrees of certainty. And that's one thing all of us want in our lives. To be certain of the reality of those things that affect us the most. And this teaching, if you get deep enough into it, you are provided with that by which you can become absolutely certain that this is the truth. We want you to study this. We invite you, all but beg you to study this. Try to disprove it. Your effort will only convince you that it's the truth and good for yourself. So the Holy Quran does have that statement in it. There's certainty through inference. You infer, use your reasoning power. But that's not top of the line. Next is by sight, by touch, by using your senses. But the highest form of certainty is when you realize the truth of it in yourself. Let me take a simple example. Let's say you like to smoke. When you first start smoking, you start coughing. Everybody does that. So nobody starts smoking except you start coughing. Because you're doing something unnatural. And the body is saying, I don't want this. But you're saying, I want it anyway. Then finally the body submits. Then you stop smoking for 30 days. Now you don't realize you want a cigarette, you use your willpower, then fine, you over it. Then you go back. And you go through the same experience all over again, don't you? What is that telling you? That's self-experience. That's not what somebody else is experiencing. You're experiencing that. If you stay off pig, and I understand lots of pig is eaten here in Memphis, Tennessee. A lot of pig. If you stop eating pig 30 days, you will not be able to stand the smell of it. And you will say, what in the world was that? What's that? That's what you was eating just a month ago. You eat chitlins here, don't you? How come you don't eat chicken chitlins? How come you don't eat fish chitlins? You don't eat lamb chitlins? You don't eat pigeon chitlins? You just eat what? Pig chitlins. Why? What are you doing to your brain? What have you done to your brain? It messes up your reasoning power. It messes up your joints. It kills you. It's a slow death. I know bacon tastes good when you're ignorant. I used to love bacon. I ate it. I loved it. But after staying off that stuff for a month, I couldn't believe I was eating that madness. You said, well, I got to ease off it. Then get you some beef bacon then. To hope you don't get no mad cow disease, though. Eventually, our people are going to eat the way we used to eat. No meat at all. I thank you so much for your kindness, your beautiful attention. We're just talking over some good talk. That's all this was about. But you got about, what, 1,400 pastors in this city? Black brothers that are pastors? Good God. When those brothers wake up, they're going to feel bad for a minute. They got to go through a process of feeling bad, but that's okay. Help your brother through it. See? The congregation stick with him, help him make the transition. It ain't that hard. The minister got a nice, beautiful way to help the brothers. The brother misunderstood the minister. The minister goes in your church and we're talking the same thing. The only difference is we're up to date with it. And he drops as much truth as you can stand. And he comes back again and drops more and more. And a lot of black pastors around the country are Muslims in secret. And a lot of black pastors in the country, and it didn't just start like that brother said 2 years ago. There's a lot of black pastors. I can name a bunch of them who are easing their brothers and sisters into the truth. All over America. Now what this brother did is bringing the dialogue down front. What he don't understand is we're totally ready. Totally ready, but we don't want to fight our people in the public, and we're not going to do that. By the way, I should tell you all, it was agreed this past Monday in Chicago at the minister's house where I was blessed to sit in. There were black leaders there, including some pastors. And pretty soon, I don't know when the date's going to be set, there's going to be a series of Jesus meetings where we will get down and deal with this. I just want you to know time is moving right along. And pretty soon you're going to see Pastor William writing some beautiful pamphlets and tracts, and we're going to help him push them. Oh, yes, he will. The brother can write. Just get it right and write. My dear brothers and sisters, this is a beautiful pledge card Minister Farrakhan designed. I'm going to ask you at this time, how many of you think that who are new to this teaching, you're here today for your first time, believe that what you've heard us go over today is the truth, good for you and your people? If so, let me see your hand. 'cause I can't read your mind. My box like yours is busted. Okay. All you brothers and sisters who raised your hands up, do you think you've heard enough today of this teaching that you would like to accept it, come in here with us, get into the study of this, and help build the black nation in the city where you live? If so, may I see your hands? All praise is due to Allah. I want the privilege. Let me say this. Hold tight a minute. I call Minister Farrakhan my big brother. He's older than me by 3 years. He's my friend, my brother, and I love him. He's not here to shake your hands. But I would like the privilege of shaking your hands in behalf of him and then direct you to the secretary. Where's the secretary? Tell me where the secretary is. Bring somebody out who can escort. Come down here, brother. This beautiful black man. Look at this handsome black brother. I want you to escort you brothers and sisters who want to shake my hand to formally accept this. I want the privilege of shaking your hand, and then after all come up, I want you to direct them to the secretary who will explain what's involved. Let me read this to you. This is what I want you to listen to. Listen to this. This is a pledge card. You're saying and you put your name in it. Pledge to strive to love my brothers and sisters as I love myself. I pledge to strive to study to improve myself spiritually, mentally, morally, physically, economically, for the benefit of myself, my family, and my people. I pledge to strive to build schools, hospitals, housing, businesses, and buy farmland, and enter into international trade and commerce for the good of myself, my family, and my people. And let me put this on your mind. Your people overseas want to trade with you. We got no business being poor. You know what I'm saying? We got no business being poor forever. Your people in Africa and elsewhere, they may not have the money, but we got natural resources. And there's so much to be said about this, but I'm just going to hit it lightly now to say, when you get this thing going like it should go, we can trade with our own people. Can't nobody stop us when we make up our mind. I pledge to strive to give of myself, my time, my talent, my energy, and whatever I can spare of my finance to accomplish the said above. I think that's a beautiful pledge. And it's a pledge every black man, woman, and child should be willing to take. So I'd like to shake the hands of those of you who want to make that move right now. Give them a hand, brothers and sisters, as they come. Give a sister a hand. Give them a black hand. Give the brothers a hand. Yes, sir. Come on, let's keep it strong now. Give them a strong hand. All praise is due to Allah. Give him a hand. Come on, brother and sister, let's make it loud.